You're live.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our May Curriculum Committee meeting. I'm Christine Battisti, co-chair of the Curriculum Committee. I'm excited for tonight's meeting, which is going to start and finish with the Elementary Social Studies Program and Findings with Ms. Jenna Vitale. Oh, I'm sorry, and there is no public comment for curriculum tonight. Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to present to you what we as a committee, a curriculum committee, found over the course of a few months of researching different programs for our elementary social studies, grades 1 through 5. So there was a process that I had presented to you before as a curriculum committee. We went through some of the preparations, pre-screening, paper screening. Paper screening was the process in which we, as a committee, used rubrics to review and to question and discuss the various programs that were offered to us by 4 companies. And now we're currently in the planning stage, so we are going to develop and enact a plan using the information that was collected during the committee's process. The committee consisted of 2 school board of directors, 3 administrators, 5 parents, and 13 teachers. We met several times. March 4th and 12th were actual presentations by the companies and their representatives. And March 13th through March 20th, teachers, parents, and administrators were allowed to come in and look at the materials on their own time. And then March 21st, we met for a final review of materials, and April 2nd, we took a final vote. So what the findings were, and the rationale for those findings, was that SAVIS, My World Interactive, was the best program for grades 1 through 5 for our Penn Ridge students. It's a research-based program. It has the 4-part teaching structure, which is social studies, has 4 parts, geography, history, economics, and civics. There's literacy support. They're very literacy heavy. It fits right in with our current elementary school RELA programming. There are map and graph skills, critical thinking skills, digital and print programming, and differentiated instruction for those students who need a little extra support. And I'm going to try to go to, thank you. Thank goodness for Chester. So here is the program revision proposal. And it's a little small for me to see, but lucky for me, I brought a cheat sheet with me. Perfect. That's actually better. No, it's okay. I can see it now. Thank you. Okay. So the statement of need or justification is that after writing an atlas, so we worked backwards from the standards to writing an atlas, so coming up with our content, skills, big ideas, and essential questions. And that's the curriculum. So at this point, we needed to support the curriculum with resources. So the committee, which was comprised of board members, administrators, parents, and teachers, looked at 4 programs, and the winner of our not the winner, I don't want to say, but the one that came out on top with our rubrics was SAVIS, My World Interactive. It's the best resource for providing that literacy-based social studies curriculum for us. It emphasizes civics, history, geography, and economics. The goals and objectives of SAVIS is to provide our students with research-based, engaging activities in civic engagement and literacy. They'll use both digital and print resources to gain access to the content of the 4 pillars of social studies, and all of this is based on the Pennsylvania state standards. It's aligned to PA standards, Common Core standards, and the C3 standards. So that was one of the factors that we were looking for when choosing a program, was its standards alignment. Also, blending skills and content. So this was a big topic of discussion for the committee, was looking at programs that really bring in those literacy skills so that our students are, it's almost like a cross-curricular connection with RELA. They're reading a lot in this program, they're writing a lot in this program. The depth of knowledge questions were superb. So we felt that the comprehension strategies and the content was very specific for not just social studies, but also that they could carry into their other subjects as well. The content presented in Savvis My World is inclusive to all students, and all students' varying learning needs. Teachers are supported with suggested activities, with suggested differentiation for content, process, product, and the learning environment as well. It also enhances the learning and gives ideas for gifted students, also for English language learning students as well. Thank you, Chester. It provides multiple viewpoints as well. We found it to be very unbiased, offering all points of view on those topics that offer the chance to have discussion, chance to have debate, and it goes through a very specific protocol for teachers about how to talk about topics that might offer chance for debate. Thank you. So the course program, it's made up of chapters, and within each chapter there are a lot of different components and processes. So it starts with a big question, which is what we do in Atlas as well. We look at the essential question, and that's ultimately the goal of the lesson. What do we want the student to know at the end of the lesson? So we like that Savvis started with that big question. It had a jumpstart activity, so something to engage the students. Maybe it's something that they can relate to, or something that triggers their prior knowledge. A quest activity, which is a digital component. Mapping and graphing skills, so even in the primary grades, grades 1 and 2, learning how to read a timeline, learning how to read bar graphs, learning how to look at a map and determine places on a map. Critical thinking skills, so using questioning that are high depth of knowledge, asking them to compare and contrast and differentiate one thing from another, fact from fiction, primary sources, secondary sources. Literacy skills, most of the assessments at the end of each chapter have a reading component and a question that is a short answer question based on the text. So the students have to go back into the text to get their answer. Online student resources, interactive lessons, digitally, academic vocabulary, common misconceptions. So some of the chapters have common misconceptions. For example, one of them would be, George Washington had wooden teeth. Well, he actually didn't have wooden teeth, so that would be a teachable moment for those students, and I thought that that was a unique offering for that program. And again, primary and secondary sources. So the method of evaluation for the end of each chapter, there are several ways that teachers can assess their students. One is each lesson ends with a lesson check. It's an interactive lesson review and a quiz that they can give. Formative assessment, which takes place during the lesson, and that's offered in both the teacher's edition and also in the online version. Each chapter ends with a literacy-based summative assessment and also a quest where they go on a little fictional trip with a character from what they were learning, from the content of what they were learning. And, okay, the estimated costs. So, there are 2 costs per student. If you notice, grades 1 through 3, $67.97 per student. Grades 4 through 5, it's a little bit more with $88.97 per student. And then the supplies and materials. So here's where I'm going to guess. Thank you, Chester. If we could have both of these somehow, yeah. So the original cost of the student activity mats, these are mats that, like place mats that go on the desks. They have maps on the front, or on the back they have George Washington and Abraham Lincoln pictures, interactive. They are giving those to us for free. So the original cost was nearly $3,000, and we negotiated down to $0 for that. Also, teachers' guides were also negotiated down to free from $4,300. So the total cost of supplies and materials is $183,864.99. There's no cost for equipment, no cost for staff development. The professional development is included in the price. And then we also have shipping and handling, which the original quote was $16,000, a little more than $16,000, and we negotiated them down to 5% of the total cost, which came to $9,193.25. And that also, it's highlighted because it's actually $1,838.65 a year, because we get the consumables auto shipped every year. So that $9,000 is actually for 6 years of shipping and handling. So the grand total is $193,058.24. Thank you. There are no staffing changes, and the textbooks and resources that are currently being used will no longer be used. Most of it was teacher created. But the courses will remain the same as scheduled. And the timeline, timeline for implementation. So May 1st, presenting here to you. May 13th, Board of Directors vote on the program. And May 14th, upon board approval, ordering of materials. And May 22nd, present to principals, coaches, and teachers, because I spoke with Savis, and they said that because we're ordering at the end of the year, we could be able to get them within 10 days. So I could potentially have the materials distributed by the end of the school year, before the teachers even leave, so they get to see their materials before the summer. Yeah. Digital training for teachers would be August of 2024. It's just an hour training, so it doesn't even require that much time of them. And then in November, there's a 90-day implementation. They call it Implementation Essentials, where Savis will come and talk to us about how things are going, what's great about the program, what's not so great, what we can adjust. And so that's after 90 days. And then August through June, we'll continue the professional learning sessions and looking at the teaching and learning cycle, see how things are going, and also making adjustments to Atlas as we need. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Vitale. I wanted to make a couple comments and then open it up to other board members. So Mr. Merkel-Gump and myself participated in the meetings. I thought the committee was handled really well. I enjoyed the conversation amongst the teachers. It was enlightening to me to hear what was important to them and the things that they were considering about a curriculum system and the tools that come with the curriculum system. It was also good for me to hear or be reminded that we're not just teaching history, that the literacy was a really important factor, and building the literacy skills, of our students and the rigor that comes with that was really good to hear. I saw the balance in the content, so I was really pleased with that. I thought the texts were engaging. I'm really happy that it's both print and digital. And the one other thing I wanted you to speak to was some of the feedback from the teachers was having older maps in the classrooms, and that we're going to look at getting those updated, but you're going to go through an update process, right? Or
I'd like to speak with the principals because there are globes, maps, like those placemat type maps, and also pull-down maps, the wall maps. Some classrooms have them, some classrooms don't. We're in the middle of gathering that data from the principals, which classrooms need them, and I didn't realize that the primary grades, there are offerings of easier maps for the primary grade. So that's also something I would have to look into, which first grade classrooms need a first grade map or globe versus a 5th grade map or globe. So we're in the middle of gathering that data.
Okay. And nicely done on the negotiating with the fees and getting
I
that
have
time-
Dr. Scheid to thank.
Yeah.
She led the way.
Yeah, and getting that implementation timeline moved up as soon as we can, so
Yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely.
Just for starters, ditto. I don't think I can say it better. But also, my great applause to you for having led everyone through that process, and to the parents in the community who came out and helped us make that decision and chose to let their voices be heard as a part of making a decision that allowed the entire community to have a voice in the process of setting curriculum.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being part of it. It was really nice to have both of you there, and I also would like to thank Dr. Scheid for her unwavering support as well.
Any other questions or comments from board members?
Yeah, I'm just happy it moves so quickly that you can get it done and get it in for next year. Sometimes it takes a long time, so it's good to see that happen so quickly.
Good.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Look forward to the vote.
Sorry, I just want to have a few questions too. Originally, when I looked at the agenda, I didn't see like the breakdown, I guess, of what chapters for the Savas, but then I just went on Atlas and I see that they're already there, which is nice to see. So like, well, at least for some of the grades, and that will come, I'm assuming, for the other ones. Like just for instance, for social studies for 1st grade. It's nice to like be able to see the big ideas, essential questions, and I think it's open to public too. I don't think it's just because I'm on which is nice for community members to be able to look and see like for Unit 1, Rules and Responsibilities for 1st graders, they'll be looking at Savas Chapter 1. You know, I like that you had the critical thinking in the slideshow, and I think that is the hugest thing with, you know, sometimes there's some topics that I think lean heavy on one-sided, and to make sure that we offer both. So my only, so I really appreciate that that's in there. Number one, thank you, because that was going to be one of my questions. But the additional resources, which, you know, like Brain Pop Jr., Epic, Macavia, Pebble Go, Seesaw, I think those are perfect to be in there. My only concern is there are some topics, maybe not necessarily social studies, but I'm not sure, that sometimes do lean heavy, just one-sided. Like, for instance, like climate change, which I know is not social studies, but there's not a lot of the other side of the debate for that. So if possible, I know it would take work and maybe not right away, but if they are going to use something from Epic or Pebble Go or Macavia on a topic, that maybe they just post that link or links there so that, you know, you're able to look at it. Because now if I wanted to, I could go and look through Chapter 1 of Savas and just be like, hey, you know, is there anything there that might be controversial? But that would be my only feedback, just to have, you know, that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and I was working on that the last 2 days, putting the lessons in there and the chapters in there so that we could see and we could reference those. The Brain Pop and the Macavia, those were in there because they're resources for the teachers to use at any point, because they do use them for RELA or they use them for math even too. But that is a good point, to make sure that whatever we are using is presenting an unbiased opinion. Yep.
Thank you, Ms. Vitale.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, and that concludes the curriculum meeting for May.
They're looking at public comment. Yeah, I don't think we're doing
Okay, then we'll move on to activities. Mr. Merkelbaum's going to go check for any public comment, so we'll just have a long, uncomfortable pause. Okay. All right, then I will pass. Mr. Dyer's not here now, right? There's a trigger. Is someone else? Okay. All right, Mr. Palmer is going to start us off then with a trip proposal.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, Mr. Dyer couldn't be here this evening, but I do want to review his overnight trip proposal for you. This trip is one that has been run for the past 35 years. It is the PASC State Leadership Conference that will be taking place in the fall. This will be in October, and this will be out at Lincoln Park Performing Arts Charter School in Midland, PA, which is quite a hike. And at that event, students in our student council will engage in leadership activities and training. It's a very, very positive event for our students who are in student council. So the PASC is the Pennsylvania Association of Student Councils. Any questions or concerns about that? Excellent. Thank you.
All right, and then moving right along, Mr. Keddy and Ms. Garish is going to be discussing the Penn Ridge High School electronic hall pass presentation. Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
Thank you very much. We are honored here as a high school administrator to really presenting our recommendations to move forward with the digital hall pass. I think it's important to preface that this has been a 2-year process. And really, I'm going to pass the baton off to Mrs. Garish, but I think it's important to publicly just acknowledge her leadership toward this end. But as we're moving forward into a block schedule, we definitely believe that this program and a digital hall pass system can actually help us in multiple ways. So with that said, I would like to introduce Mrs. Garish.
Thank you very much.
I got you.
You got me? Okay. So I first would like to just talk a little bit about how we currently are able to monitor students when they leave classrooms. We have 2 different systems in place at the moment. We have paper passes that are used when students are going to places like a house office or the main office or the nurse's office. A teacher will write that pass. It is a carbon copy. Still have carbon copies out there where the teacher keeps one copy and then the student takes another copy with them. Additionally, a student signs out on a piece of paper when they leave the classroom and they sign back in when they return. If a student is using a restroom, we use a color-coded pass system where students pick up a red pass if they're on the 3rd floor, a yellow pass if they're on the 2nd floor, and a green pass if they are on the 1st floor. Again, the student signs in and signs out. And as you can see, it's kind of an old-fashioned system in terms of monitoring students' movement throughout the building. And with a population of about 2,300 students and 600 square feet, it really is very difficult with this paper-based system to keep track of our students, to know where they are, to make sure they've arrived where we've sent them, and to know how frequently they're leaving classrooms and losing out on class time. So what we have proposed is looking at a digital pass system. And the system that we've really focused on is 5-star system. And the reason why we've chosen this platform is, first of all, it's cloud-based. Everything will be stored on the cloud. We'll be able to quickly access data and able to really look at who's leaving classes when and why, and how can we help to support our students to not lose instructional time. So that's one thing that we really like about it, rather than having to go collect papers from over 100 teachers. The other thing that we really like about this system is that it has many facets to it. It not only can be an electronic hall pass system, but it also is going to help us as we move into our flex period called our RAMS time for next year, because it has some capabilities of allowing teachers to request students for that RAMS time. So what we'll see is we're really going to be consolidating 2 paper pass systems, a system that we currently use for our RAMS time, which is called efficiency, and we're going to be gaining that electric hall pass system all within one platform. So let me tell you a little bit more about it. Thank you.
So as I mentioned, one of the things that we love about the 5-star system is that it will allow us to determine frequency of pass use. We'll be able to understand who's leaving classes, when, and why. It also will help us prevent students from sometimes deciding, hey, let's all meet in the bathroom at a certain time. If we can monitor who's leaving the bathroom or classroom at a particular time, and we're seeing patterns of behavior where certain groups of students are leaving at the same time, there are ways to set the system to not allow those students to exit a classroom at the same time. We can limit the number of passes, we can keep track of who's out when, so if there's some sort of emergency, we're able to determine where every student is within the building really quickly. We're also able to create a system within this platform where students have a digital ID in addition to their physical IDs they get at the beginning of the year. And what's really nice about that digital ID is it can explain or list the different types of privileges that student has. So for example, if we have a student who has late arrival and is coming into the building at a time other than the typical start of the day, they can show that on their phone and say, yes, I'm supposed to be arriving at this time because I have late arrival. So it's really a system that is going to be able to provide us with a lot of different supports for our students, and those supports are really going to help us, again, preserve instructional time, promote safety and security within our building, and also really help to support that positive behavior that we're looking for. That just kind of sums up what I have here. So we are looking, again, to not only protect that instructional time, but also taking advantage of the features of making sure that we are combating vaping by keeping track of who's in the bathrooms and also curbing vandalism. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Keddy, who's going to talk about how this is actually going to be a cost-neutral solution.
It actually could be cost savings from a standpoint, because as Mrs. Garish mentioned, we have efficiency is also, I'm not going to get into the specific details, but you would be shocked about how much money all of those carbon copied and paper passes cost. So when we've done over the last 2 months a very deep analysis and actually spoken to 3 different vendors. And those costs, it's in small print at the bottom, but some of these programs cost upwards $15,000, $16,000 and don't have the functionality of 5-star, which is why we went with 5-star. But with an up cost of $3,300 and a yearly renewal at $2,200, we spend more than that on paper. That's not even accounting for the program efficiency, which currently monitors our RAMS times. The faculty isn't 100% support of this. I always laugh because when I took the job, I got my laundry list from my administrative team, and they said, this is the stuff that needs to be fixed. On top of it was, we want a digital hall pass system. So we put the legwork in. We think we picked the correct product for it, and we're looking forward to your support as we move towards block scheduling and just help monitoring all of our students. Guys, thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Yes. Shoot. How do you track the student?
Well, we try not to use that word because they're not. It's not a GPS system.
Right,
what we will have is real-time data regarding when students are signing in and signing out of classes.
How do they sign in and sign out?
All right.
Sure. So what a student, there's 2 different ways that it can happen. Student always starts with just that raising the hand, asking if they can leave. The teacher can either go to their device, the teacher device, and activate a pass, or they can tell the student to do it themselves. So there are 2 different ways on their laptops that they can do that. For classrooms like, let's say, a wood shop or the gym, where students aren't going to have their computers set up, we can create a kiosk, which is just an independent computer that has the system running, and the students, instead of going to that paper that they would normally sign out with, they would go to that computer and create their pass that way.
Is there any phone options with that? Or?
There are, however, as we continue to want to minimize the use of phones during the instructional day, we're not going to. Other than that digital ID that I mentioned, which would be entering the building, we are going to try not to use the phone.
That
Needs to
makes sense.
start.
Delete that off the feed.
Okay.
No,
Is this the same one that, I know we looked at a program last year that we didn't use?
This is a different one. This one is newer to our knowledge. It's really grown a lot in the past year, and it has a lot of functionality that the other system that we looked at does not have. For example, that digital ID that I mentioned, the ability to do the RAMs scheduling. There are other features as well where we can roster clubs and students can get points, like almost positive behavior points for participating in activities in school. So they're all different features that this has that some of those other programs we looked at did not have.
And then I remember the one thing I didn't, I mean, you know, I'm not a fan of very much technology, but the issue I had with that one was that, and it sounds like it's a little better, but kind of still the same, or one of the issues was for kids to go to the bathroom, basically the teacher has to stop. They have to either like request it on their computer or the teacher. I get you're saying there's two ways, but every time a student has to go to the bathroom, does like teaching stop for that teacher to handle it?
Yeah, because the student can create that pass on their own device, on their own laptop. They can initiate the pass themselves with permission from the teacher.
how does the teacher give them permission?
That would happen the old-fashioned way, just like it would happen now. I'd raise my hand, hey, Mr. Wars, may I go to the bathroom? You'd say, yes, I can create a pass, and I would go onto my laptop and I would create that pass for myself.
Okay, but could a child just create their own? How do they get the
Well,
permission?
one of the things that we like about this system is that our hall monitors and our security team would be able to see on their devices exactly who has a pass when. If a student's leaving the classroom, a teacher's going to be aware of that, so it would be difficult if the student created a pass for themselves and just left. The teacher would know a student left their classroom.
Okay.
And at the same time, all of our hall monitors and security would be able to see who's supposed to be out in the hall when, because they would have that program running.
So they have to have a computer out there, or?
They could use a computer, they could use a tablet, they could use another school-issued device, even an old phone could work as well.
I've had experience using digital hall passes in my former district. The iterations and where the companies and the vendors who provide this, the systems have become way more sophisticated. There isn't going to be much, if any, interruption to instructional time to do the passes. Like that's what we do know, and that's why we like this system, because it wouldn't be any different than it is now.
Mhm.
And there's also functionality just to continuously grow. We want to slow play this as far as and make sure that we're going to set the parameters up for the teachers and the students, and we're going to grow with this program as well.
We used this program for over a year at Abington when we were there. We brought it on, worked very, very well. It did cut down on time lost in instruction, teachers stopping, sitting down, writing a pass. It streamlined things. It also allows you to kind of, as you were saying, see where kids are. You can set up restrictions. Hey, only 10 kids on this floor are allowed out at a time, or 15. You can kind of have it customizable so the administrative team can really set where the passes are located. And it's very nice for the staff to be able to say, oh, here are the 15 kids that should be out on the 3rd floor. I don't see you on this list. Why are you out without a pass? So it's really, really, I think, useful in terms of getting rid of administrative time.
Any other questions?
Sorry, Ron, I was looking at you before
Yeah.
you commented.
Go ahead.
I remember when this was rolled out before you were here, and one of my things was, you know, we have a lot of administrators, we have security. I'm like, you know, in my mind, I'm like, why can't we handle this ourselves? But at the same time, I understand that if you're taking time with that, then you're away from, you know, other things, going in, observing teachers, you know, doing other things. So, and it's relatively limited cost. So I'm there for, you know, to be in support of this. And this may sound like a micromanaging question. It's not meant. It's just honestly curiosity. And as you said, you're growing with it. My thing is, like, it's great to have all the features, right, and be able to not track, but track students. So then how will it be used? Will you, as you grow with it, will you have something in place for like how often you're checking it? Can teachers on a team check it? Will there be, because it's great if you have a system, but if you're not using it, because we get busy with 1,000 things, so I'm not saying that you won't, but will there be a system in place of how, because when that gets out to students, then everyone's on your P's and Q's, like they're tracking me, but then everyone, the bar gets raised and things end being smoother. So, sorry, I'll let you answer it.
No, 100%, we've already walked through that as an administrative team, and what we're going to do is develop systems to make sure that we're constantly reviewing that data. Because again, I want to stay away from the tracking. It's about utilizing our time efficiently and knowing where students are and how to better triage that. To your point too, and I know you and I have spoken about this on occasion too, it's not going to supplant our security and or our duties as they are and still having staff monitoring. But what it provides us is the statistical analysis and also the information when we're dealing with parents and talking about issues. Johnny has missed 15 minutes of class. Johnny Janie is asking for a pass every day. She has missed this amount of time in third period class. 2 kids are constantly meeting up. We can immediately go in, have that conversation with the parents, program the system so they can't access passes at the same time. Not to say they can't access passes, but not together. One of the other things that completely intrigues me as well, and I've spoken to Joe Gallo about this, is the capacities in case that we have emergency protocols. For example, God forbid something happens and we're in a reunification. We would have a system in place that we can actually take attendance real time and find out where all those students are. So while that's a smaller piece that we haven't spoken about, from a safety and security standpoint, we would have that capability. Right now, if something was to happen, we scattered like flies, we'd actually be doing it old school, trying to figure out where students are, as opposed to having a bunch of teachers come out where people can come in and just put a number in and we know where they are. So again, that's not tracking them, it's just using our time more efficiently and being able to spread that across multiple forms, whether that's in the hallway, whether that's in the classroom. It's just going to equal more instruction for kids.
Any other questions?
No, that's great. I mean, I would, tracking when someone's using the bathroom 6 times a day with each pass is next to impossible with the paperwork system. I think I'm surprised because the last time we discussed it was a lot more expensive and we didn't go ahead with it. And this seems to have a lot more and for a lot less. So I think it's great.
That 14,000 number up there was actually the number that we were quoted for one of the systems to simply have the pass system, and that every add-on, like the ability of recognizing students who are going to after-school activities, right? Because that's another plan of this, was an add-on. That number was actually, because I got the quote, was $16,000.
That was the negotiated down price was $14,000.
I mean, it was like, wow. I was shocked.
All right, well, thank you very much. Very informative. Thank you. All right, then we will move on to the high school ranking analysis presentation. Mr. Keddy and Mr. Palmer.
Tim, don't run away. Right here. Thank you so much.
Mr. Palmer, before you begin, I'd just like to make a couple comments about the presentation that you'll see momentarily. In my travels and in talking to board members, I hear about the class rankings, and I thought it would be good if we just have an analysis of how rankings are generated. We'll hear about the U.S. News and World Report ranking. Sometimes the methodologies change, where they fluctuate from year to year. And I know our board president has cited in his speeches about our class rank and our slipping of our class rank. So we're committed to taking a full, deep dive into our class rankings, and also there are areas of improvement which we can improve upon. And I think you'll find this to be a comprehensive review. And there are various different rankings. Some are very, very subjective, things like the niche ranking, where surveys are given to parents and people can write online, et cetera, et cetera. So there's no perfect ranking in my personal opinion, but I hope that this presentation will provide some clarity for our community. Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
Yeah, thank you so much. There will be a lot of graphs and tables and things like that, so just be prepared. When looking at data, we looked at 4 different ranking systems. These are really the top ones that are out there. If you're searching, Niche, Great Schools, School Digger, and US News. In the presentation, there are active links for each one of those if you want to examine them in detail and look at the rankings and surrounding school districts, looking at their methodologies. But they do have similar methodologies in that what they're really looking at is college readiness. They're looking at AP scores and AP participation, and they're looking at state assessments. Since all states require students, based on federal law, to take exams each year, what they're really looking at is how you're performing relative to your surrounding schools and schools across the state. I will mention that some of these are used on sites like realty sites. Great Schools is used on, I believe, Zillow. So when you're in there searching, you'll see these as what they're going to use as their measurements of surrounding schools when you're looking for a house. So Niche, the first one, if you look on there, does have a ranking. It ranks the district at 199 in Pennsylvania, and it gives a score of a B. This one is gives you separate scores in academics, diversity, administration, clubs, and activities. You'll see that the score of B+ that's up there is based upon A's in academics, teachers, sports, college preparation, but some lower scores in things like resources and facilities, diversity, and food for some reason. Great Schools does not offer rankings in the state. What they do is they provide a score essentially out of 10. Penridge is given a score of 6. You can see there our rankings in comparison to surrounding districts. We really took a look at districts that are in Bucks and Montgomery County, but also included Southern Lehigh as well. It's one of our surrounding neighbor schools. And you'll see there that the score is 6 out of 10, and then they will have subcategories showing test scores, student progress, college readiness, and equity. School Digger is another. It offers a ranking. It ranks the district at 218, and it has a star system giving the district 3 out of 5 stars. Yes, much like Google. But as I will say, some of these are based on subjective surveys that are given to communities, asking people to write in, kind of like Yelp reviews, for people to talk about restaurants, which we don't think is necessarily the most appropriate for a school district. And finally, US News. This is probably the most well-known and most regarded ranking. This year, the district has a rank that has gone up. We're ranked 192 of districts in Pennsylvania. This is specifically for high schools. So when you're looking up there in terms of the comparison where we are, our surrounding schools, 192 in Pennsylvania, 4,664 in the nation, and number 80 in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania metro area. You'll see that the scores are really based on the items that are up there. It gives the district a score of 73.58, and you'll see that those are based on several factors. The rankings, how they've changed over time, I just would like to take a minute to show you. There has been this year a little bit of volatility in the rankings. You'll see these were just released, I believe, a week ago. Some districts taking dramatic drops, some taking dramatic increases. This is generally based on, nothing in these districts is changing wildly. They did have some adjustments to how they're actually doing their calculations of the numbers. And you will know that the numbers that they're using actually lag behind the year. So they can't use this year's or even last year's scores. They're using the previous year as they're doing their calculation. So these tend to lag behind as they come through. You'll see that Penridge, however, has made a steady increase since 2021. We were down close to 250 and are now up at the 192 mark. You'll see Penridge, where some schools have been making a pretty steady decline. The Central Bucks schools in particular have each declined over the last few years, as both of the Council Rocks, Pennsbury, Neshaminy, Quakertown, and Upper Perk taking significant dips as well. The data is really based on a number of key factors. The heat map that you see here kind of shows in red lower scores and obviously in green higher scores. And these are those same districts ranked by their 2024 score. So you'll see Penridge there at 73.58. And the red, as I said, indicating lower numbers. The things that we're looking at there are AP participation, and we're looking at our Keystone results. So in terms of the methodology, the way this is done is 30% is on college readiness. And when they're talking about college readiness, they're talking about students participating in AP exams and AP coursework. The second part, the 10% there, is also kind of part of college readiness, but it's really talking about the breadth. Students, again, engaging in AP coursework. Do you have students that are engaging in more than one advanced course? You'll see the next section, 40% is on state exam proficiency, so that's really looking at Keystone exam performance. So how are students doing in literature, Algebra 1, and biology? And they also have a component really looking at the HUS group, our historically underserved students. And those would be students who are Black, Hispanic, or economically disadvantaged. And they take that from our demographics, and they look at the scores of their students in comparison to the all group. And finally, there is a 10% for our graduation rate. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ketty to talk a little bit more detail about our high school scores.
So because the scores are based on our Keystone performance scores, what we wanted to do was provide that benchmark information. Here is where the school has performed. So when I take a look at, to add a little bit more detail, they're tested in 10th grade literature, in their Algebra 1 course, as well as for biology. So this is for the 2024 numbers. We tend to focus in on the advanced or proficient, right? Breaking it down more specifically, we had 507 students who took the literature test. 325 of them were advanced or proficient, 42 were below basic. For Algebra 1, we had a total of 632 take the test, 316 were advanced or proficient, and 65 were below basic. And additionally, in biology, we have 528 students take that test, 319 advanced and proficient, with 62 below basic.
Just, I think the algebra number looks a little bit deceptive because these scores are really coming, these are the scores of students in the current senior class who, this is their scores based on junior year. And some of these students would have been set to have taken, let's say, algebra all the way back in 7th grade. So if you project that backwards, that was actually during COVID. So our numbers are not really accurate here in terms of what the kids could be doing, simply because we had people not taking the exam at that time. So you're going to see that fluctuation there. That is not because we're doing a terrible job, it's simply because of COVID.
Mr. Palmer, could you explain the opt-outs during COVID? Just so.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I mean, during that time, students were able to opt out of the exam, so our students did not have to participate, but unfortunately, them not participating has a negative effect upon the school. It's not counted in our state scores.
So the next graph talks about the historically underserved population. And I think what's important when we take a look at this analysis is to see we put our advanced and proficient scores are on the left in the green, and then completely to the right is that advanced and proficient of our Latino population, African American, and multiracial. And those numbers, again, I feel like I'm the bearer of the bad news to be able to say, here are our benchmark numbers. The end numbers for our Latino population was 14, for our black was 14, and multiracial was 30. And again, I think these are just showing us that we have areas of improvement regarding remediating these students. The next map really shows, and this is what we're particularly proud of and think that this is a measure. If you take a look at our AP offerings, when it comes to course rankings, it's a combination of, as Mr. Palmer showed, those percentages of our proficiency in those state exams, but banked up against how many AP courses our students are taking and how they're doing on those tests. And what we're proud to say is that we offer a robust amount of AP courses. As a matter of fact, moving into next year, we've already added one. All right? And if you take a look at our projected courses just based off of our program of studies and where our students have actually, through course recommendations, we've added 2 even additional courses that didn't run last year. So this map shows a historical context of how many AP courses, I shouldn't say that, how many AP tests were taken, students that took one versus students that took multiple. Because again, that's another indicator. And what we see here is, at least when we're viewing the analysis, is that as you move from 2018-19 to our current, we're seeing a pretty steady increase of our students taking one or more tests. We thought this was important because it shows the amount of student in AP exams per grade. And it kind of makes sense. Our freshmen take the least amount, our sophomores take a little bit more, our juniors take a little bit more, and then our seniors who are college bound are taking the most. But I think these are areas, as we talk about areas of improvement, is the way that our program of studies and also our course offerings and how we're scheduling kids in the classes could positively benefit our entire student population. Now, when it comes to AP testing and what our students are taking, there's obviously different areas where those tests are offered. What this shows is, and it makes sense, that most of our students are taking the math and the sciences as well as the social studies, and that in the arts, world language, and then in English are the areas to which our students are taking the least amount of those tests.
That's a quick question here. So is that dropping, or why is there the dip? And I guess it's coming back. Is that COVID related too, or? And I see in math they were down from 5 years ago, and science were down. total.
The one that sticks out to me that I don't understand is the English one from 21-22, which kind of spikes up. But if you take a look at this year, we're seeing a trend of increasing.
Yeah, but I'm talking about math and science.
Yeah.
Why is it dropping? I guess are we just less participation? We're adding courses, right?
I would say less participation in taking the exams, meaning our participation in the classes might be high, but that doesn't mean that every student in the class is actually taking the exam. So recommendations for improving based off of that, I mentioned a couple. Do you want to pop up here? All right. This is one of the primary reasons when I came on that we moved to block scheduling. And I don't want to, we haven't spoken about that for a while. But as shifting to block, what we're able to do is create an opportunity for students to take more courses. This is the arena where we can increase the ability for students to take courses. Additionally to that, when you talk about remediation and enrichment opportunities, this is where our RAMS time, that flex time that we've been speaking, we have daily embedded time every day now that students can be touching base with their teachers and discreetly and specifically working on whatever those deficits are. So that's where you want me to keep going? All right. 2 seconds here.
The one thing I would like to add, just looking at our improvements, really talking about increasing participation in AP, because that's really talking about 40% of those rankings. If we look at AP, I think part of our data analysis has shown us we have a spot to grow there. We can certainly increase our AP participation with our students by increasing those offerings, as Tim said, providing those opportunities, really looking at our program of studies to say, okay, what are we offering? Should we be offering honors level courses where an AP would fit in? Or should we be offering AP courses to kids at younger grades? Should we be looking at, AP US history as a course for kids in a lower grade and providing that opportunity for them to take it earlier? And I think it is a bit of a mindset shift for some people to say, hey, let's open these courses up and grow them for kids so that they have ability to reach and to stretch. I don't think everyone has to take an AP course. I went through high school. I didn't take any AP courses. I did pretty well, but I think for our kids, we need to encourage them as much as we can to reach and to stretch, because we know the kids that do participate in college level classes in high school are going to be more prepared. Whether they pass the exam, whether they get a 3 or higher or not, they're going to be more prepared and ready for college. The other thing, talking about increasing performance on our Keystone exams, I mean, this is a continual process for us. It's not that, we think we've solved everything. There is a continuous process of improving instruction, looking at our instructional practices, looking at our assessment practices. So, in the last few years, we've looked at doing small group instruction in math. We've looking at text-dependent analysis in ELA. There's been tons of work that's been done, and that is going to continue. This year, we've sent teachers out for STEELS training in science. So all of those things are going to push us forward. For other types of things we can do to kind of bump those numbers up is really look at our students who aren't proficient, that are basic and below basic, and looking at the potential for retesting those kids. So if you're a kid that's on the bubble, you're a kid that's close, I think it's worth considering retaking one of those Keystone exams and improving that score and bumping yourself up, rather than relying on other factors for graduation. And finally, our HUS group of kids, one of the things we're thinking about is exploring strategies for them. I think anything that you do to improve instruction for all is going to help those kids as well. But targeting those kids for additional instruction, for help, for support opportunities, and also really looking at how we're going through our placement. We can use things like AP Potential, which just allows us to see kids who, based on their previous scores, they could potentially do well, and maybe they're not being counseled into taking those classes just because, they need a little bit of encouragement to do those kind of participation. So I think there's a lot of areas of growth there for us. And I think these are targeted strategies that will see those moving in the upward direction.
I'll take the moment because I know we've already spoken about the digital pass system, but that system can be used to target students so that teachers can be reaching out to those respective students and actually requesting that they're coming to receive enrichment and remediation. So that as much as it's a different conversation, it's all combined between the scheduling, how we're utilizing that AP readiness factor through the PSATs, how we're looking at our program of studies, what course offerings we're doing, as well as talking to the counselors and the teachers about how we're managing these students and trying to propel students to move forward.
You have a question?
Quick question, so on the slide with the courses by grade,
Yes.
so we added AP Human Geography, which is for 9th graders. So
Yes.
we should see those numbers go up, right?
I believe,
All four
how many
grade
sections?
levels. There's 5 sections.
There's 5 sections there for next year, but all 4 grade levels can take it. But
Okay,
yes, it's
good.
open to them.
And remind me about the 2 AP science courses that we had. That's not inclusive of 9th grade. Right?
No, those aren't. Those 2 was a split of splitting the AP Physics C into the mechanics and
Okay.
the E&M separately. They have been 2 different tests. We're separating the 2 different courses.
Okay, thank you.
So the one thing to come back to is the reading scores are low, right? We acknowledged that years ago when we did the 3rd grade reading program, which can we get some sort of update? Because I know we made progress, and I don't know if it's showing in these results, but I'd like to learn more about that. Not right now, I'm not asking, but to understand how effective that was
Absolutely.
implemented, and then what are we doing to keep improving? Because that's one target area I think is still being worked on.
It's definitely a target area for us, and so I don't know, Dr. Scheib, want to talk at all about things we're doing, but she would talk all night about what we can. I don't want to take up too much time.
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about, but yes, that is, we've been working on the REALA program for many years, and we have an outstanding balanced literacy program at the elementary level. What we have been working on really is, when we talk about queuing systems, et cetera, we've been working on phonics programs at the primary level. So K and 1, we've been using a program called Foundations. It's multisensory. It is a really, it is a program that we have seen remarkable results. So what we're doing next year is adding that instruction to 2nd grade. So we will have a train-the-trainer model. So we're training 4 of our own teachers to be the trainers that will be able to sustain us over many years. And our 2nd grade teachers will begin training this year, the end of this year into next year, so that K, 1, and 2 all have that systematic, explicit phonics instruction, right? Which is one part of a balanced literacy approach. We are working really hard, and I had several meetings about it today, to ensure that those programs are implemented with fidelity across all the schools, that the teachers have all the supports they need, that students have additional lessons when needed. This is not a special education program, this is a program for all. And our goal with that program, really, as a former special education supervisor, our numbers go up in special education, mainly with learning disabilities in reading. And out of that number, the highest number are students who have decoding problems. This is targeting that. Once you have a fluent reader, you can move on to reading comprehension and so on. So that really is the basis, the groundwork for the continuation to middle school and high school. Once you have that, you have readers. Now we have these robust programs. We're looking at social studies and critical thinking. Now my brain's able to access that. We do believe that that is the correlation with reading success. Will we have 100% of fluent readers at third grade? Maybe not 100%, but we can certainly have more than we have now.
Just to piggyback off that, because I agree with you, Foundations is a phenomenal program. I think then where the next steps are is when second grade is over and they're going to third grade and they're not at that level, where do you go from there? And then there's the struggle, and sometimes that's where then the gaps continue to happen. And I don't know what, and maybe you don't have the answers right now, but maybe we can look into that later. Like, how do we keep building on that to close the gap and less students? And I know some, may be identified and need an IEP, and it's more than just, the program, is over. But even for the students, like, do we measure that at the end, where then, what students are still not on the Foundations level, and what does that look like then, third, fourth, fifth?
So that is a very complicated question, and I know you know that, because many students who do not reach the level of proficiency that we expect move into a specialized program. We also have intervention periods. So in other words, if I had my 25-minute lesson and I need additional lessons, and I don't even need to be in special education, then that's where I would get that. It's complicated. Reading is a very complicated skill. So having additional sessions of that is really where we go when students aren't reaching the mark that we expect in the time period that we expect it. And then we also have child study and instructional support at the elementary level. So that's where teams of teachers and administrators are looking particularly at students, so that we design individual programs for them. What else do they need? What other resources can we give them? And they have individualized plans, which is called an IST plan, an instructional support plan. And then we measure that growth over time, and many students are successful with that. And then they move out and they move in with the group. And then some students are not, and they move to an evaluation, and they will receive additional supports from there. So it's really like a response to intervention model, if that makes sense.
And when did because I remember even just with my own kids, like having the Beyond the Bell program, and sometimes they would get maybe flagged for a couple weeks to get the intervention. But when did that start? Like, when do you feel like we would be able to see, I don't know, like the rewards of having that systematic decoding and coding focus?
So we already see the strength in the data. We already know that what we're doing is working for more kids than what we were doing before. We need to expand it into second grade, right? That is the missing link at the moment. And once you're in second grade and you've gone through this program, now you're in third grade, but word study still continues. There's a real difference between, when you're teaching students how to read, you really have to teach to students, not just motivation and heart, you have to teach to their brain. And for many students, probably 85% of students, they're going to learn to decode. They will. And if you guarantee an explicit program, a systematic program like Foundations, you will get those results. We are always going to have a smaller percentage of students who may need more of that, or their brain does not learn in a analytic way, and maybe they need a whole word study program, but we can meet their needs too. And I applaud this board and all the boards before this board on all the support you've given us to help our students read, because we have reading specialists too, and we have special educators, and they are highly trained. So I want you to know that the effort is there, and I have my eye on that. Now that I'm back at elementary, that's really what I'm focusing on, to ensure that we have fidelity K to 3, right? K to 2 for Foundations, but then the word study continuing. And I do expect that we will see that, and we should start seeing the correlation between a an increase in reading skills at the elementary level and a decrease in identifying in special education in the area of reading.
I want to echo my excitement and support for the phonics program. So please keep us posted on the rollout of the second grade, adding it to second grade.
I certainly will, thank you.
And I'll just add that when I visited all the elementary schools, the one thing in common that most of the teachers talked about was putting that in second grade for foundation. So there's a lot of, you could tell there's a lot of support from the teachers, and they saw the value of it. So it's a great move.
They have advocated since the minute I walked into the new position. But they were right. I went into all the classrooms, I studied it, my background is in reading, so I fully support that, so
Good.
thank you.
I also wanted to thank you for that. I mean, I see it. I have first graders, and I definitely see the foundations are amazing. So, and having it go through to second grade, I thank you for that. I also just had another question shifting to math to increase, looking at middle school. I know we've talked about this before. Is there any thought in the future of seeing how when we're placing from 5th to 6th, looking at that differently to see if we're not just placing right now, I believe we're placing all into just regular 6th. If we don't do that, and maybe bump them up if they need to pre-algebra, would we see, I'm wondering if that would be set them up better to understand, and even with scores. So I don't know if there's been thought of that, and I'd like to hear more about that. Not necessarily right now, but also moving in the future.
I just wanted to say that
Yeah.
I've had many conversations with Mr. Parrish, who's in the audience, our math supervisor, about this. And I just want to say quickly, because we're going to block scheduling, it does give us an advantage to do some things differently at the middle level, because we don't have, students at the high school level will have many more opportunities to take additional math classes, so it does give us an opportunity to relook at that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have one question, but it's a pretty broad one. So I certainly appreciate all the work that's being done on this, and I'm glad to hear that resources that you guys have needed throughout the years have been supplied. Like, it's wonderful news. So then my next question is, anyone like in management would ask is like, what do you need next? Like, what do you need from us? Do you feel like you're adequately staffed to keep this momentum? Do you feel, and you might not be able to answer that now, but I feel like that's where we can help is, are there additional resources, or do we need more like one-on-one instruction, in which case do we need more people? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll take that, and you can back me up, please. I think what we need right now, please try not to laugh, is some patience. I just got here, we have a couple other cabinet level members, our math supervisors here. You want to wave your hand, Michael Garish, who has been providing us with some updates with his analyses, of the various programs. We have a lot of different platforms we're using, and something I would like to do is sort of consolidate. You see some in the presentation or slide deck tonight, link it. I just want to make sure that all the schools were using unified approaches, whether they're benchmarks, so we can really get a true measurement, an idea how students are doing. I'd also like to take a look at our scope and sequence of algebra, to your question, Ms. Sharino, how we're assessing in the Keystone or the PSSA algebra across the state. The scores are lower. They're just low in all school districts. I want to say maybe 7 to 8 years ago there was a revision in that particular assessment, and we saw there's been discernible dips across the Commonwealth. So we're just taking a look at all different aspects, and we're just scratching the surface with all of this different academic data. And we need to also be cognizant that we don't want to become too obsessed with high stakes assessments as well, where we're just driving this bonkers and we're teaching to tests. We need to make sure we're supporting all of our students, meeting them where they are, and really drilling down when we talk about our HUS students and how these we can best support our students. Dr. Scheid, I don't know if I hit all the targets there, but anything you'd like to add?
No, I think that you did, Mr. Barrios. I certainly agree with you with common assessments, and we've been developing them, and we'll continue to expand those through Linkit and other means.
I'm certain that Dr. Scheid will speak up when she needs
Very funny.
sorry, I know we've talked a long time, but another quick question. For, I know last year, and you guys might not have this information from being a little new, but I know last year toward the end of the year, there was a presentation and it went over like, at least the seniors, like where they were going, how many were going to the workforce, military, college. Typically, what is the percentage? I know it's been dropping, students going to college and more going to workforce or trade or those types of things. What is, and maybe you'll have to get back to me on that, like on average, Penridge students.
Well, there's another Gareth sitting next to the math coordinator who might have that information because she's the 12th grade house principal.
I don't have that information for this year yet, but what I can do is I can work through Dr. Shai, make sure you all have a high school profile.
Yes,
of all of
that's
the
what
students from last year. That gets updated every year, and that's available publicly, and we can make sure to give you access to that. I don't want to think, I want to say we're somewhere around like 80%, but I know that our profile has that number exactly for you.
Sometimes those statistics, can be misleading. So if you see high rates of students entering college, the data to track that, and the students' data after that. So we know students can get into community colleges, but the goal would be how many are actually completing, whether it's an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree. It can be very misleading. So I know, and I think it was a miscarriage of education to push everyone to go to college, and we're starting to see a seismic shift in the value of students entering trades and entering manufacturing jobs, and that's why we are committed to ensuring we have a robust partnership with the Upper Bucks County Technical School and ensuring our students have vocational opportunities and pathways as well.
Right. And we're good? All right, well, thank you so much for answering all the questions and presentation. All right, last four activities is our health and safety plan. Mr. Paul.
Hopefully this should be very quick. The health and safety plan, you may have seen before if you were on the board. When it was approved, in order to receive our ESSERS funding, this plan needs to be reviewed every 6 months. This is our opportunity to review it again, simply speaking about mitigation during COVID. So I'm going to guess that there aren't too many questions on this one. If you have any, I'd be happy to respond.
Sorry, my only question is, ESSER funds run out when? And then when, because we have to do this based upon the receiving of those funds.
Yes, the ESSERS funds are running out at the end of this year, so we will have to have made all of our purchases, or have essentially assigned that monies to programs, and then it must be spent by December. So our reporting will actually run into the following year on the ESSERS funding. So we'll continue to review this plan every 6 months.
Until next.
Until next year, yes.
So that'll be, this maybe one more time, and then we'll be done with it?
It will be closed out, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, and that's a wrap for activities.
Right, so now we'll start the policy committee. We're gonna start first with public comment.
hear me. Just want to start off tonight's meeting. We have been discussing this a lot, and had an executive session also. And so tonight, I just want to make an announcement. Tonight we are ready to debate Policy 720. However, with the pending Title IX legislation, we'll be debating a policy that may well be taken off our hands either by the upcoming Title IX changes or the courts. We would therefore like to move at the next board meeting to retire the current policy effective August 1st, 2024. This will allow our administration to make shifts as to make shifts as a new legal precedent comes down through the year, and we need to remain in compliance with the law. We would like to affirm our belief that the administration will be able to do this in a way that will respect the rights of all the students to privacy, dignity, and safety. As we move forward, we will ensure that the ARs the administration will use will be transparent and available to the public so that every parent may act in the best interest of their child. I want to add a few more things. If you aren't aware, new Title IX regulations came out on April 19th or something like that, and it's taking effect August 1st. This has a lot to do with what we're talking about with the policy. It would be not a good idea to move forward on any of this. Title IX is very important to the school district as we need to be in compliance with it. We receive over $6 million of funding every year from the federal government. One of the requirements is that we follow Title IX. I also want to be clear that we will have biological bathrooms, we will have gender bathrooms, and single use. Any student who feels uncomfortable has a right to use a biological bathroom. It'll be throughout the pool. We will leave that up to the administration as far as where they are, as they know the traffic patterns, they know the different aspects of the school. And that's all I have for now, and we'll go to public comment. Does anyone else want to add anything?
Sure, Mr. Wirtz, I'd like to add a couple things. So just to add some more details. So at the outset of these discussions, it's important to note that on April 19th, 2024, the Federal Department of Education released a comprehensive 1,577-page revision of its Title IX regulations, which substantially revised its guidance regarding the use of bathrooms by transgender students. These revisions are joined by a recent letter by the Pennsylvania Department of Education affirming the same approach. These regulations will be effective August 1st, 2024, and will be enforced by the federal government and the Commonwealth. So I just wanted to provide those details. These regulations will go into effect August 1st, 2024, and this gives us some latitude to have an appropriate system, whether that's administrative regulation, that we will adhere to a federal guideline. As Mr. Wirtz just shared, there's $6 million of federal funding. We want to ensure that we're complying with a federal regulation. That's all I have, Mr. Wirtz.
Anyone else? Okay, so for public comment, according to Policy 903, public comment, which is limited to 3 minutes, should be directed to the presiding officer rather than individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. For confidentiality and privacy rights, specific comments regarding particular individuals must be communicated privately to the school board and superintendent via email at psdschoolboard@pembridge.org. So up first, we have Laura Foster. Okay.
Laura Foster, East Rockville. So I want to commend the board and Mr. Barrios and Mr. Johnson for taking the initiative to follow the law and to follow what was put down through Title IX by what you had just said. I think that's a really good start for supporting our trans and non-binary and gender-neutral children. So you know that I'm the co-founder of Ridge Network. I'm also one of the co-founders of Penridge's LGBTQIA Alliance. So we're a group that works to support the rights of our queer students. In that group is also the GSA students. So in this space, I would then ask you between now and August to just get rid of the policy. There's no need to spend time and energy and vitriol to debate and put out there a policy that you know you're going to drop in August. Just get rid of it now. Let our administration do the job that they had done for so many years before this policy came into place by ILC. Like, we all know that it's discriminatory. One of the agencies that we work with is the Education Law Center. They've issued many statements about the illegality of the policies when anytime you include a sex-based bathroom. It doesn't matter how many options you provide. If there is one option that is discriminatory, you can't have it. So I'm sure that you guys are familiar with some of the other districts in Bucks County that do have bathroom policies. Those are New Hope Salisbury, Pennsbury, and Bristol Borough. All of their policies are around non-discrimination in facilities. Penridge is the only district in the county that has a policy that is holding on to discrimination. Whatever is coming next, because it's going to be discriminatory towards the kids in our student body, know that you can't discriminate against students because you feel that our community isn't ready. Our community is ready. Let this go now. Just drop the policy now and let our administrators be able to handle whatever the issues are that happen in the bathroom, and allow our trans children to be able to have a space where they feel safe. We want all of our kids to be safe, but being safe isn't the same as being uncomfortable. If a student is uncomfortable because there's a trans boy going into the boys' bathroom, that's worth the conversation. And I think it's something that our Director of Pupil Services can help mitigate. Dr. Shai can help mitigate. But to change a policy because other people are uncomfortable reckons back to the 1950s. It reckons back to what happened in the civil rights era. Please stop making us be on the wrong side of history. You know what to do is right. You know that the right thing to do is to let go of this policy now. In addition, through the coalition, we are asking that in policy 903, that under section 1,
Laura,
that,
Laura,
yeah.
so,
Oh, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Jane Kramer.
Jane Kramer, Sellersville. I appreciate the desire to accommodate students who are uncomfortable with the idea of sharing a bathroom with transgender youth. But I think the policy that was attached to agenda seems pretty separate but equally. I'm not an attorney, so I'd be interested in what our solicitor's feedback was on that policy. But better yet, I like if I understood correctly, that the plan is to vote to get rid of the current policy and then wait and see and let the administration handle it. So I do appreciate that. Just wanted to say, it's okay to be uncomfortable with the idea of transgender people. It's new to some people and doesn't align with some people's religious faith. That being said, it's not okay to be disrespectful to fellow members of the Penridge community. Some may not realize it, but it's disrespectful to intentionally misgender, imply transgender youth are a threat, or equate their identity with a mental illness. I encourage our community to lean into this discomfort and learn more about transgender people, not from a political party or Google search, but directly from trans people themselves. About 20 years ago, a friend of mine who lives on the West Coast transitioned. I'll be honest, I was uncomfortable with it at first and thought it was a little weird. Then my friend took the time to educate those around him by sharing his thoughts and experiences on social media. What a gift that was. I've lost my space. It helped me understand why I should make the effort to use a person's preferred pronouns instead of rolling my eyes at having to be politically correct. It helped me understand the relief my friend felt to be able to live his life authentically. At the last board meeting, a student, Jinx, shared their experience as a trans student at Penn Ridge, and I hope their effort to educate the community helped reduce some of the fear that has been expressed during public comment. I encourage the board and administration to offer training experiences to help people in our community learn about transgender people to address the fear and discomfort that's been expressed during public comment. It shouldn't be left up to students and parents to do this work. Some may say our community isn't ready for this kind of training. I don't agree. I raised my children as a two-mom family in this community and really didn't experience much direct negativity. I'm sure I interacted with...
You're 3 minutes or something, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Just wrap it up, please.
Just to wrap up, I ran across people that didn't probably had biased feelings about me, but they kept it to themselves. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Matt Carbonaro.
Matt Carbonaro, Percy Borough. Tonight, I would like to discuss the bathroom policy and how it has been handled thus far. The Penn Ridge Community Alliance ran on a pledge to represent the entire community, regardless of municipality, age, or party affiliation. Yet, many community members that have spoken up about keeping our current bathroom policy have been flat out ignored. A lot of parents have asked you to do a survey, yet you refuse to do that as well. You also ran on being moderate and nonpartisan. Gender-neutral bathrooms are not moderate. Allowing biological boys in the girls' locker rooms and vice versa is not moderate. The only reason that you're doing this is for a political agenda, one that will not help the students, instead it will hurt them. During the campaign, the board majority said that the biggest problems in our bathrooms were vaping, bullying, and vandalism, yet only 3 months in, you're wasting time on gender-neutral bathroom policy that the vast majority of the community does not want, and will actually make these problems worse. Why do you only use legal fees when it's convenient? You worry about their costs when you decide to look for a new solicitor, or when you claim that our current policy puts us at risk, yet you ignore the district having to pay for a special lawyer for a civil rights complaint. There are only a small number of transgendered students at Penn Ridge, and they don't even want gender-neutral multi-user bathrooms. The people that want this, most are adults with an ideology to push. There is a reason why we don't need mixed biological sexes in private spaces like bathrooms and locker rooms with no supervision. It will be putting all students at risk, including the transgendered kids. This will be a disaster and will be on everyone that votes right on that board. What you are doing is not right. I hope at least one of the Democrat majority members gets a conscience. My hopes are not slight on that, and does the right thing before it's too late. If you vote on this, this will be the beginning of the board fundamentally transforming the school district in a way the public doesn't want. I urge parents in this audience right now that have younger kids or having kids coming into the district, take them out of Penn Ridge, get them homeschooled, or put them in private schools before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Janelle Montigny.
Janelle Montigny, Hilltown. I want to read part of an email that was written to the school board. You have chosen to do what you want and ignore what you are supposed to be doing in your role as school board directors. Yes, you may be appeasing a select portion of the community, but you are failing the community as a whole. I ask myself, why are you all on the board? And at this point, it seems that you all have other agendas that do not truly involve what is in the best interest of our students, and certainly not the whole community. I love our community and schools, and I've tried to support you as a board, but I'm unable to after such an email. You advocate for what you want and don't truly take all communities' voices into account. I hope that in some way your email and your position will be corrected. Sound familiar, Carolyn? You wrote that in an email directed at the former board regarding their policy allowing students to get exemptions for masks. It's extremely ironic and hypocritical that the things you accuse them of are exactly what you are doing right now. During the pandemic, you demanded that all community members have their voices heard. Yet countless community members have written and spoken, asking you to keep the current policy of all multi-user bathrooms to be by biological sex, and single-user bathrooms for those not comfortable with that or who want privacy. You have been asked by many parents to do a survey, but you won't. Outrage over Leah's conflicts of interest have been expressed and backed up by facts, and that's ignored. How are you representing the entire community like you pledged during the campaign? It seems like that was just another campaign lie to get you on the board, since you have done just the opposite. Funny how upset you were over feeling like your opinion was ignored, and then you turn around and ignore the majority of families in our district as soon as you get in office. Finally, this is to all of the majority. I've talked to many parents in the district that are considering pulling their children and doing a cyber charter to school because of what is going on with this board. Do you want to be responsible for a mass exodus of students and decrease funding for our schools? A shrinking budget definitely won't be good for teacher salaries next contract negotiation.
Thank you. Next, we have Fred Crickery.
Hi, my name is Fred Crickery, East Rock Hill Township. I have 3 girls in Penn Ridge and want to talk about Policy 720. I think the current policy doesn't need a revision, and that we need to keep girls' private spaces private for restrooms, locker rooms, and sports. Girls in private will never feel comfortable with a male, let alone their own father. In the current policy, everyone has access to a restroom, so everyone's included and has a right to privacy. My daughter has a disability, and we use the single stall bathroom all the time. It's not a big deal. Boys should use the boys' room, girls should use the girls' room, and the single stalls are available for everyone. This is not rhetoric or hate. This is common sense. This is truth. This is reality. Matthew 19:4. Haven't you read the scriptures? Jesus replied, "They recorded that from the beginning. God made them male and female. Speaking truth is not the same as hate, even though some put labels on it as such. Sometimes truth needs to be said." If there is other issues that are taking place at school, we need to work together as parents, staff, community to build character and walk alongside our kids to build their confidence as they grow. As adults and kids, we all need to put down the poison of the internet and really train up our kids so they can treat others well and work to make a strong, loving adult to be in society. I just want to say thank you to the amazing teachers, bus drivers, school board members, and concerned parents that make Penn Ridge community great. There are kids struggling and hurting with many things, and my heart breaks for them. We need to show extra grace to the disabled kids and kids with gender issues, and I know all parents are here just trying to love and protect their kids. I hope this revision doesn't take place because the majority would have to use the single stalls. How would that work? Long lines down the hall, and kids late to class. Let's move on from this bathroom nonsense that causes division as seen in other districts and focus on academics instead. That's all I got.
Thank you. Next is Gianna Burns.
Hello, my name is Gianna, and I am a 6th grader at South. I think that the next to when there is a boy next to them. And the boys are going to go into the girls' bathroom because it's going to be more hygienic. Because I've heard from people that at our school there is a door missing on one of the stalls in the boys' bathroom. So, and I think that it's very unreasonable, and I understand that you may think or identify as the opposite gender, and that's completely okay, but it doesn't make sense to put all these more people in stress that they are going to get hurt in the bathroom or not, or something's going to happen to them in the bathroom. And I agree, my parents said that they would switch my school if this does happen. And this is very possible for a lot of other students because their parents don't feel comfortable having them use the bathroom with the opposite sex in that bathroom. From whatever may happen, and just like how kids will feel, like knowing that there is a boy next to them or there is a girl next to them. I bet there are boys that also don't feel comfortable doing this. For whatever reason, or what they've seen happen to other people, they're not going to be very comfortable. And as a younger student, I wouldn't feel comfortable either, knowing what could happen and all of that. And there's going to be a lot of people that switch schools because of this, and all because of whatever happened. So that's all I have to say, and thank you.
Next is Caitlin Bobber. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong.
Good evening, Caitlin Boger, East Rock Hill Township. In attending recent meetings and listening to the community and students speak on proposed bathroom policy, I really heard some consistent messaging from speakers either for or against, which really sounded unanimous. Everyone is in favor of focusing on the very serious and potentially illegal bathroom issues currently taking place in our schools right now: vaping, vandalism, and drugs. There are real problems that need to be addressed. So I asked the board this question: do we honestly think making gender-neutral bathrooms will resolve these issues? Absolutely not. It will be a free-for-all and encourage additional chaos and potential bad behavior. I am not in favor of making a mockery of Pennbridge schools to appease a few students. We have heard countless examples of schools that have done this in the past only to find gender-neutral bathrooms are not the solution, as they further encourage nefarious behavior. This is a very slippery slope, and we need to use reason and logic to ensure we are protecting all students, staff, and thousands of visitors. I recently sent an email to the board expressing my concerns and received a response back from the president stating, "We believe we can come up with a policy that supports and protects all of our children." To me, that implies that you're concerned with the safety of all of our students, but in practice, the revised draft only seems to consider the handful of students that want gender-neutral bathrooms. I don't understand how you can say that you're protecting and supporting all kids when you have heard numerous examples, like the one we just heard, from students that are very uncomfortable with the opposite sex from a biological standpoint in their bathroom. I firmly believe that their feelings and concerns matter just as much. I believe the safest option for everyone and all students is to have the very few students that want gender-neutral bathrooms to use private single-use bathrooms. They are technically gender-neutral after all. And I would be in support of possibly adding additional single-use bathrooms so these children have privacy during these tough adolescent periods in their lives. In my opinion, there are ways to accommodate this very small percentage of students without opening up the district to lawsuits and making the majority of kids feel uncomfortable in a place they go to for personal privacy. Thank you.
Next is John Aaron Martin.
John Aaron Martin, Sellersville Bureau. The other day I was listening to an economics podcast, and they mentioned how the
Federal Reserve has dual mandates to promote maximum employment and stable prices. There was questions raised wondering if the Fed would remain politically neutral as we head into the election season, or if they would abandon their mandates and be seen as political actors. As I listened, a thought popped into my mind. I wondered, does the school board have any directives like this that you're bound to? In my mind, if the school board were to have dual mandates, I would hope that one of them would be academic excellence, and the second, guaranteeing the safety and the well-being of our kids. How lucky our kids would be if you would just hold to those two principles while remaining politically neutral. It's a fact that the newest members in your ranks won the recent election on the promise that you would bring an end to the partisan politicking that was ensnaring the board. To everyone's disappointment, you have done the opposite. Instead of returning the focus to academics, you have pulled what can only be described as a political stunt at the expense of our kids. My son recently said to me, "Dad, do you know what's distracting for me at school?" I said, "What, buddy?" He said, "I love watching the train go by." And I thought, my God, he's just an innocent kid. He should be thinking about trains and math and football and solving his Rubik's Cube, not all this gender-bending nonsense. I struggle to put into words how badly I resent this stuff being pushed on my kids. You should be ashamed. And if you want to prove me wrong, say, okay, on second thought, you know what? We already have a bathroom policy that works. It works for girls, it works for boys, and the single-use bathrooms, like she said, are the perfect solution for any student who doesn't feel comfortable in the bathroom that matches their biology. If you have to change something, add more of those. The single-use option is perfect. They're private and they're safe spaces, and we know how much you like safe spaces. Mixing biological genders in multi-use bathrooms would be the opposite of a safe space. They would be very, very vulnerable spaces for everyone. A couple meetings ago, we heard horrific stories of things happening in these type of bathrooms. To be clear, the public does not support your plan for any type of mixing of biological genders in multi-use bathrooms. The parents have said no, the administrators don't need that headache. Find a better way to spend our tax dollars.
Next is Emily Gieb.
Emily Guy, Rock Hill Township. I'm here to yet again ask that the board stop modifying Policy 720. The current version of the policy is appropriate as written. Your proposed modifications, thrown up on the school board website about 30 hours ago, is another example of poorly written garbage thrown together in haste, typos and all. I don't see how any of you can consider this responsible planning or responsible leadership, let alone transparency with the community. Honestly, I feel like you're just throwing crazy stuff out there repeatedly now in the hopes that we give up on attending these meetings and paying attention to what you're doing. Well, we aren't. When you mess with our children, we're not going to stay silent. Removing locker rooms from the policy altogether is another huge mistake. Opening up locker rooms to a free-for-all with no policy in place. Adding a sentence about case-by-case basis makes no sense. How's that going to be determined or enforced? What's the difference between the two? Bathrooms and locker rooms. Both are private spaces where clothing is being removed, and both should be separated by biological sex. Are you separating them in policy because you know sports is next, is directly tied to locker rooms, and even more important, to a bigger majority of the community? Does gender identity bathrooms mean gender neutral bathrooms? Because that's how this definition sounds. Please explain how a transgender child who feels uncomfortable using the bathroom of their biological sex is supposed to feel more comfortable in a bathroom with both sexes in it. Referring to potential future laws that may or may not be written is also an absurdity. You basically admit in writing that there's no current law in this area after claiming the policy is supposed to facilitate compliance with laws. That's basically gaslighting. How many of each types of bathroom are going to be available in each school? High school, middle school, elementary? What's the cost to make modifications for these? How do you plan to enforce this policy? The current policy is not really being followed. We've heard examples of it not being followed. So how do you plan to enforce it? Or is this just political theater and you don't really care about that? The current proposed policy change says it applies to all students, staff, volunteers, and adult visitors in the buildings. So you honestly think it's a good idea that adult men can go in the same bathrooms or locker rooms with little girls inside of our schools? It's your job to protect students. Right now, it's the district's job to be responsible for students while they're in school. Every single one of you that votes yes on this policy needs to sign a document saying you're going to take personal responsibility for the repercussions if any student is harmed because of this. Too many people are afraid of saying the truth anymore, and it's just leading us down the slope of insanity. You need to take a step back, take a reality check, and listen to the community for a change. The effective date of August 1st for the Department of Education guidelines is assuming the multiple lawsuits already filed against those guidelines aren't upheld before then, and the November election may change those guidelines yet again. Why are you wasting time modifying a policy you're just going to have to change again? And you need to stop combining multiple different committee meetings into one meeting. Parents of little kids can't stay out late and come out and speak late on weeknights, not to mention
Sorry, your
making
time's
little
up,
announcements at the start of each meeting that contradicts what's on the agenda.
Can you wrap it up, please?
Next, there was someone, Olga Harding, but you said no agenda item. Are you waiting? You waiting? Okay.
Olga Harding, Hilltown Township. I'm going to read a portion of a statement from a 17-year-old junior who is a student in our district. She writes, I am concerned about the potential risk that the policy in which students who identify as transgender may use the bathroom of their preferred sex despite their biological sex. At the high school, there are locking individual use bathrooms where gender does not matter, but no one else is disrupted. In October, I was grabbed on my chest and pushed into the wall by a biological male who at the time went by his male name. I will call him Person A. Person A was someone seen in a girl's bathroom all over the school, skipping class, vaping, doing things that are not appropriate. Many girls felt uncomfortable with this and made comments like, are you kidding me? I'm using the bathroom. And I hear Person A voice start screaming. It startled me. I began to voice my own discomfort when a friend went to her grade level principal about the concern. She was told to use commonly referred to as trans bathroom. Person A then made threats to me, posted a story on Snapchat, walking into school one morning after is when he pushed me. And on top of that, I was grabbed inappropriately in my chest. My teacher reported it. While he did get suspended, he continued threatening me, my family, and my address on my social media. A few days later, he posted again that his new name would be Person B, a feminine name. Then he returned back to school from his suspension. I felt angry. While my parents felt scared, I would see him in bathrooms where there is no supervision fast enough to stop anything from happening. Despite Person A changing his name, Person B, his physical appearance, and structure of his change, he was still bigger than me and stronger. Sure enough, I did encounter Person B in the girls' bathroom again, and I found out that he intentionally skipped class to come to the bathroom by my class, 2 floors away from his. Another day, I walked in to find him talking about me, and there was an altercation. A teacher had to come in and drag him out. Thankfully, this was before he made a final approach to me. He was told not to be in the bathroom when I am there anymore, but this did not take away from other trans people being there. Well, yes, transgender students should also have opportunity to feel comfortable. The best way to ensure safety to all students is to make the policy apply to single-use bathrooms. I am giving this girl a voice. Now, how many other have not been heard? Thank you.
Next is Kim Badillion.
Kim Badillion, Percy Borough. Title IX has not changed despite what you're saying here. Title IX is law and requires legislation to change it. A federal agency cannot change law. Title IX does discriminate against biological males and biological females. They recognize a difference. This is not a trans issue. This is a biological sex issue. Males do not belong in female private spaces and sports. If the proposed bathroom and locker room policy passes, it would apply all the way down to elementary school. Parents would be forced to try to explain gender theory to a 5-year-old so their child would know what bathroom to use. The parents would not be able to wait until their child reached a more mature age to introduce this very confusing and complex topic. By creating bathrooms and locker rooms based on gender identity, the school would be de facto affirming the self-diagnosis of gender-confused little children. Doing so would unnecessarily provoke anxiety and confusion amongst very young and vulnerable children. In addition, the school would be unable to monitor appropriate bathroom usage because each child would self-determine what is appropriate on any given day. No more could a parent instruct a child on stranger danger, because a child could expect to encounter an adult in the bathroom at school. A 5-year-old little girl would have no recourse if an adult male, who self-identified as a female, walked into her bathroom and closed the door. A 13-year-old boy could say nothing if a 16-year-old girl who self-identified as male walked into the bathroom while the boy was using the urinal. In Penn Ridge, we must respect the primary role of parents to direct the upbringing of their children. Creating school-sponsored private spaces based upon a perception that differs from biological reality puts students in physical, emotional, and psychological danger and disrespects the primary role of parents in raising their own children. Thank you.
Bill Satino.
Bill Satino, PSD Borough. Obviously addressing policy 720. Writing policy is hard. In my work life, I work in the mental health field. Part of my role, I write policy, so I get the challenges that are faced with this. More importantly, the other part of my role is, for the last 20 years, working exclusively with survivors of sexual abuse, including those from the LGBTQI population. In addition to that, I've also worked with teens and adults who've demonstrated problematic sexual behavior, none of which were trans, by the way. So I have a unique perspective on this topic a little bit. I have to ask what people really are afraid of. People are saying safety. Sure, we want our kids to feel safe, but at the expense of a transgender students. They face enough stigma in society as it is already. Now we're going to discriminate them in school. I can assure you that transgender individuals just want to live their lives for who they are and be accepted for that. I can't count how many times I heard that in the session. They too want to feel safe. And as far as the quote-unquote safety risk that some people are talking about, I'd argue that that speaks to a larger issue of how maybe some of those children are raised and the morals that they're instilled, and teaching them how to trust and respect other people. Some other people spoke to some of the educational needs that should be left to the professionals too. I'd agree with that. So really the hot button topic here, I think, is equity and inclusion. I applaud the committee for the initial draft. I think it's definitely moving in the right direction. It accepts students for who they are, regardless of how they identify. Certainly small steps in this direction is progress towards safety and for the trans students' mental health. But still walks a fine line, I think, from the multiple options piece that really needs further looking at. But realistically, looking at the current policy, clearly it lacked inclusivity, with biased language solely focusing on biological sex. Kind of addressed anyone who wasn't cisgender almost as an afterthought, in a way. I'm not even sure if that's legal. I don't know if that's something that the solicitor should be consulted with or not, but I digress. Whereas the proposed policy, again, at least starts moving us in the right direction of equity and inclusion. So to try to keep this brief, to sum it up, I just want to thank the committee and the board for reviewing the policy. I appreciate the work revising it in the way that supports our transgender students, works to make them feel safe and comfortable, and works to restore equity and inclusion in our schools. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Next is Michael. Oh, I'm sorry.
Pietrangelo.
Thank you.
Yeah,
evening. Michael Pietrangelo, Percy Borough. Prior to the far-right takeover of our district in 2022, what policy was the district using regarding bathrooms? For decades, we trusted our students to use the bathroom most appropriate for them and allowed administrators to handle these issues. There were no issues caused by intersex, trans, or non-binary students just trying to use the bathroom. The prior board's motives were political, religious, and discriminatory. I want to remind the mob spreading false claims and fears on social media, your actions do have consequences. While your only motivation is creating political divide, there are real children, real families that you're hurting with this hate speech. Constantly calling a minority group a threat to our daughters is the same disgusting propaganda that we saw hurled at other minority groups in the past.
That's right.
I should thank you for exposing your bigotry so clearly, but your rhetoric is spurring more abuse against these children. For those very loud few here tonight, you have tried calmly explaining to your child that there are just a certain amount of, a small, minute group of folks that are just simply born into a physical body that doesn't match their gender chemistry or their identity. That there's a difference, that this difference doesn't make them a threat. Please share with your children that statistically, in reality, they're much safer in the presence of a trans child than a priest or police officer. Again, ILC influence policies have no place in our public schools.
That's right.
Not one of their policies addresses a real concern here in Penridge. South Middle School needs updating and repairs. We need to attract and retain more aides. Our middle school and high school students clearly need the SEL initiatives that unite and encourage good citizenship to continue beyond 5th grade. And while you let this charade go on and propose costly illegal policies that no faculty or admin are going to dare enforce, you are ignoring all of our valid concerns throughout the district. You were elected to end the madness, not continuously drag it out. And I just want to say, as somebody who just moved to this community a few years ago, I kept my mouth shut for a very long time.
Could you wrap it up here, time?
And it's no longer going to happen. It's disgusting what's happening with the comments that are made to these children, and it's disgusting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ross McCollum. I knew that, but it looked like the same.
My foot's asleep. I'll wake it up. Okay. Ross McClendon, Hilltown, I got some great news. The Cowell Hill Bridge is under construction. So, I'm sorry, I had to bring some good news. Last month I was upset and angry, and the deeply hurt part of me drove my public comment. A little embarrassing to watch myself afterwards. I will do better. I saw some of you at April Showers. The video was great, and I'll get to the point regarding the bathroom policy. What an inspirational event. Penridge is a National Banner Unified Champion School, I found out in this video. It's a great video. Congratulations to the students in the Unified Club. So watch this video. It said in a banner, if we're unified, there's nothing we cannot do. So I really like that from students. From the video, a teacher saying, best day of the school year, this is all about the kids. And it's really just to embrace all the differences that we have in school and promote inclusion and acceptance. I did not write that. That came from our video. I thought it was a great video. We had a student who spoke last month who identified as trans and explained their situation. We've had others. These students need our protection like all other students. This is our legacy, folks. Right there on their wet bottoms at April showers, or here speaking from their hearts about being a trans student, young, intelligent, inclusive, and accepting. And we are still fighting this attack on our district, on our trans students. We need to do better. Separate but equal. Somebody already brought this up. Do you really want to segregate our students? So from what I understand, the law has changed, so this is good. We're bringing it up. We're going to be looking at it. I think we'll do the right thing. I don't want to have additional tax monies, and I definitely don't want to do things illegally. The Independence Law Center is a hate group intent on driving their biblical worldview and promoting reactionary Christian, driving their political agenda in our public schools. They promote book banning, removal of pride flags, and other anti-LGBTQ. We have found out recently, provided direct input, the Independence Law Center has provided direct input in whole or in part to our last board's major policy rewriting campaign. It was rushed upon us, resulting in significant upheaval, lawsuits, and the civil rights complaint. They're not about our students. Please ignore the policies that came from Independence Law Center.
Ross, your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Brian McMullen.
Hi guys. Brian McMullen, East Rock Hill. I'd like to comment on the proposed changes to 720 again, and as usual, I'll be brief and to the point. Leave 720 in place until a ruling comes down from a higher authority, if that's the case. It's clear to me that after the last school board meeting, you have absolutely zero intent to serve the real community majority interest on this topic, and all indications are that you'll ram through your agenda despite many attempts, many failed attempts in other school districts and community comments against it. I'll continue to bring this up until you start to take it seriously. Imagine how the recent incident in North Bend School District would have ended if the biological boy attacked the girl not in the cafeteria in front of many students and adult bystanders, but in a bathroom where there are fewer or none present to react and come to her rescue. The attack was reported to have lasted between 7 and 15 seconds, and the girl was hospitalized due to the amount of damage that the boy caused. Again, imagine if the attack was allowed to go on without intervention. This is just the latest in a multi-pronged attack against our real males and real females, students and their right to feel and be safe. For example, pardon me, there's a Facebook page that's promoting an upcoming DEI workshop. This page is administrated by the founder and president of the Pair Up Society that's actively suing the district. In their ad for this workshop, they're using the Penridge School District logo to make it appear to the uninformed or misguided that this is a sponsored event by the district. I've been informed this afternoon that that is not a district-sponsored event, so we're dealing with more deception, and the ad is still posted with the logo as I'm speaking to you right now. In closing, we heard from a public commenter at a recent school board meeting how changing this policy affected Bristol Township School District, and how the administration lost control of the schools to drug deals and sexual activity between minors. As a father of two in the school district, I'm reminding you that your votes will be public record, and I will hold the school district and you personally responsible if anything happens to either of my children due to changing policy 720 here at Penridge. Let's make sure that we guys.
Next is Stephanie Regina.
It's the Ridge logo, not the Penridge logo, just to be clear.
Just
Inside the Ridge logo, it says Penridge School District.
It's modified.
Deceptively presented.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You can learn a little bit.
Stephanie Regina, East Rock Hill. I had some stuff written. Now it has notes all over it. I've had so many thoughts. I mean, I'm here because my oldest is in 7th. You know, this is going to affect my kids. I don't know what they're going to discover about themselves yet. I hope that by the time they get to this building, they're in a safe environment where they're accepted. So I find it interesting. I feel like there's some overlap that I think would be nice to acknowledge because there's been so much division over the last few years. You know, like some people seem to be against this draft of the policy and express some concern for the safety of trans students on, I hate saying sides, but from multiple angles people are expressing concern for all students regarding the gender-neutral bathrooms, which I'm honestly a little confused about. I'm also a little confused about legally what that's all going to mean. But if we're looking at gender-neutral bathrooms, it seems that a lot of people are expressing a lot of discomfort with that. I don't see how it wouldn't be discriminatory to have signs that denote whether it's a biological sex bathroom or gender-neutral. I don't know how that would work. But I find it interesting that people are accusing this board of not listening to the community. I feel like this draft is born of exactly that, trying to listen to the community and make a compromise. Even if it's not the right solution, I feel like they're trying. And the ones who are saying that they don't feel comfortable, and students were saying they won't feel comfortable in a gender-neutral bathroom, I think the point of this is that you would have the option to then only use the biological sex bathrooms, so you wouldn't be faced with that problem. I'm not saying that's a good solution because there would not likely be very many biological sex bathrooms anymore because we'd have so many categories. And that's a problem in a large building. And if you agree with that, that might help you understand why the single-use bathrooms are also a problem. There aren't enough of them in a large building. So I think we can overlap here in a lot of ways and try to come from, you know, a place of thinking about everyone, putting aside ideology. From what I understand, there was a politically driven law firm behind this policy as well as others. We kind of another overlap was that this should be politics free. So I think a policy that has been influenced by a politically influenced law firm is a problem. And I had a couple other notes. Am I out of time?
Thank you. Yeah,
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Maggie Connolly.
Hey, I'm Maggie Connolly, Percy Borough. So I've got no delusions of grandeur here. I realize that at this point, there's nothing that I can say to persuade you, the board, on which way you're going to vote on 720. Those of you who will vote to pass the updated version of the policy either sincerely believe that a boy can become a girl by just stating that it's so, or you're more worried about the district being sued for hurting someone's feelings by excluding them from a bathroom than you are about the district being sued over a girl being assaulted in a bathroom. So though I may not be persuasive, I am a mom. And if there's one thing that motherhood has taught me, it's that we need to let these little irrational people that we love make their own mistakes sometimes. So go ahead, make your mistakes, do your worst. I just ask that you give us concerned parents enough information to protect our children from you. So my first question is just kind of, it's probably really naive. So if there is no policy, then what? Do we just go back to whatever Title IX says, whenever it's decided because of the lawsuits and it's not happening until August? And then if Title IX at that point shakes out to be ambiguous, as evidently it is because we've had a policy and then a revision under the same overarching Title IX, then what do we do if there's still some wiggle room in there? Then what happens if policy changes again after the November elections? So if you just clarify, like, if there is no policy, what happens? Do the administrators of each school make their own policy? If so, could parents, let's say, like, so I have kids in elementary school, could a parent choose which elementary school in the district they felt their kids were safest at based on the whims of the administrators of that school? Then, so if you do go ahead with policy 720, when will it be trickled down to the elementary schools? This is particularly important to know for those parents who feel the need to remove their kids from Penridge before this is foisted upon them. Will each school administration have sway over that timeline as far as when it's trickled down? Are there any specific policies barring staff from using students' restrooms unless, of course, they identify as a 15-year-old? In that case, obviously, you can't do anything. What will the map look like as far as distribution of bathrooms? A couple of people have said already that adding multiple different choices kind of dwindles the option on each bathroom station. I didn't go to Penridge High School, but just thinking about the high school that I did go to, if I was going from the science building to the liberal arts building, but the only bathroom I felt comfortable using was in the admin building, I'd be missing 10 minutes of class. So what are our thoughts around kind of negotiating those concerns? What is the truth on changing before gym? Because the policy said that students aren't required to change before gym, which to me seems kind of gross. But
I'm sorry,
parents,
3 minutes of that. Can you wrap it up, please?
Yeah. So some parents have said that their kid does indeed change for gym. Also, what level of knowledge are you all okay with parents having about their own children as far as opting into which bathroom?
Your time's up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next is Shannon Harris.
Shannon Harris, Hilltown Township. I'm just going to be really sarcastic here. Y'all might want to start thinking about cat litter and cat litter boxes, because several universities, like Boston University, prestigious universities, they've already started down that road. Just want to make sure you guys still understand that this is just guidance, not law from the federal government. It is partisan and political. Again, it could change in 6 months. I actually Googled how many districts have ever lost federal funding. I couldn't find an answer. So I would just suggest you stop hiding behind, oh, we got to follow, I'm not saying don't follow the law, but guidance on the federal government. There's a difference. As far as I was looking through the policy, it talks, there's a lot of definitions in there. I didn't even know exactly what each one stated, and then it started me thinking, if you guys are going down this road, you are going down this road of teaching the concepts of gender ideology. So let's just be real here. You guys are going to now start having teachers teach these concepts. You guys are going to, and you guys are going to have to put it in your curriculum. There's things that, you guys are going to have to deal with. And you also need to be very transparent to the parents, because I know that's going to be very upsetting when that time comes. But you guys you need to be truthful about it. So I'm going to just talk about the rest of my time is actually part of the policy and the wording in the policy, because I do feel like if you're going to do this, there needs to be no room for error, and I was very disappointed again on the changes on it. On page 1, multiple factors. In the purpose, you state multiple factors. What multiple factors? Please be more specific. The definitions, transgender and gender expression, they're actually not used in the body of the policy. Not saying they don't have to be in there, but you might want to use them if you want to put them in there. And what is the difference between gender and gender identity? So the last sentence in the purpose reads, restrooms and schools will be designated based on multiple factors, including gender and sex assigned at birth and gender identity. I'm unclear as to whether you're trying to list 2 factors, with the first one being labeled gender and sex assigned at birth, and the second labeled gender identity. And if I'm having issues, I'm sure our kids are going to have it too. It could also be interpreted to mean a list of 3 unique factors: gender, sex at birth, gender identity. Just please clarify. Also, in the definition sections, you have multi-user restroom. Policy states multi-user restrooms will be designated for the use as biological sex, However, further along in the guidelines, it says that the district will provide access to 2 types of multi-user restrooms, one based on biological sex and one based on gender identity. As it stands, the definitions of the multi-user restroom doesn't match what the guidelines.
Excuse me, your 3 minutes are up. Can you wrap up, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see. I'll just say one more thing.
Quickly.
2 types of user restrooms, because this actually has to do with the policy and the wording. One based on
All right.
biological sex and one based on gender. And you have a problem
You need
with
to
the
wrap
lack
it
of
up, please.
definition for the singular
That's
term
up.
of gender.
Time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Janelle Soderman.
Good evening. My name is Janelle Soderman, and I am from PERC. I have 3 children in the school district. I was an elementary school teacher for 15 years. I currently volunteer at school. I coach. I am part of the parent-teacher group, and I'm involved with many parent activities at school. I was at the last 2 school board meetings, so I'm aware of the policy that is in place and now the policy that is proposed again. I really feel like there should remain 2 bathrooms, single-use and same-sex bathrooms. I'm in support of transgender students being supported and feeling comfortable. And right now, the policy in place says that transgender students that don't feel comfortable going into a bathroom of their biological sex can use a single-use bathroom. There has been no backlash from this, so why create a gender identity bathroom? Let's be honest, a transgender student will not be found in this kind of bathroom. They are not comfortable being in a bathroom with their biological sex. So where will they go? Into the biological girls' bathroom or biological boys' bathroom? And yes, this is where they are comfortable, and some of the biological girls and boys are okay with this. But now you've created 2 more problems. For example, one is a biological boy on any given day can come to school and say they identify as a girl, and then can go into a girl's space, which I don't agree with at all. And 2, now we have a gender identity bathroom that will become a free-for-all. No transgender students will be in there, just boys and girls doing what you can imagine. I heard 2 meetings ago what can happen when you introduce this kind of bathroom. You're smart, you heard it, you were all young adults, so you can imagine. So let me end with this. Let's think of our young girl's opinion. Pretend I'm a 13-year-old girl saying this to you, because a lot of them don't have the courage to say it to you right now. A feeling on what gender you think you are does not give you the right to come into my bathroom. At what point does someone's perceived right to use whichever bathroom they want override my right to privacy? And just to be clear, I heard Jinx speak a week ago, and she didn't say she was transgender. She said she was non-binary, because I was listening to her, okay? So please get that right. Please listen to everybody that comes up here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Amy Brown.
Good evening. Amy Brown, West Rock Hill. So first and foremost, I want to make clear Title IX is not a law at this time. So I see no reason to make any changes at this time. I appreciate you wanting to create an environment for all, but the current policy does that, I believe. Our country in and of itself is a melting pot, right? We have many different religions, many different races, sexes, ethnicity. The list of our differences could go on and on. But what unites us, not only as a nation, a community, and a school, is our ability to respect each other, to have kindness, and to have understanding. We don't have to agree with each other, but we do need to create a safe environment for our children. I believe we all need to have common goals and missions. The school board's mission is not going to be interpretation of gender ideology, psychology, or to guess what science is. Your job is education. You're first and foremost, you should be focusing on education. If you were focused on education, perhaps we would be higher ranked than we saw tonight. I implore you to stick to the facts, not human interpretation and bending of science. There's no science behind anyone's feelings or interpretation of how they feel. There are times in life when we all need to apply common sense and risk management, where we have to weigh the benefit versus the risk. From what I could find, there are currently 6,521 students grades K-12 in Penn Ridge. That's 6,521 minors. That's minors, not adults. According to the UCLA School of Law, 0.5% of the adult population is transgender. Applied to Penn Ridge School District, that would mean there are possibly 32 students out of 6,521 students that are possibly transgender. That means there are 6,489 minor students that will be exposed to situations where they could be, that they have not consented to, or where they are exposed to the opposite gender without their consent. We don't allow those under age 18 to vote, drink alcohol, smoke, or join the military, yet you believe they have the ability to consent to use a gender-neutral bathroom and fully understand what that means. Your policy amendment states children, and I say that again, children, don't change for phys ed. I disagree. The high school offers swim electives, and my own child has stated that they must change for gym. They can't wear jeans and certain clothes. They have to be in gym gear. Any policy must also address locker rooms. Your new policy does not differentiate between staff, adult, student facilities, volunteers, etc., which brings a whole other level of concern were you to adopt
Sorry,
a policy.
your time's up.
Last thing I can say, if you're worried about lawsuits, they're coming.
Thank you. And last is Joel Nieto.
Hi, my name is Joel Nieto. I'm from Percy Borough. So the trans community has over time categorized itself with other communities in what many call today the LGBTQIA+ category. I understand the idea. When you are a fringe group, there's strength in numbers. So you merge with other marginalized groups to be a larger force, and so you can be more likely to be heard to create change. Furthermore, the letters keep piling on to the name as well, because logically, how can you be on the side of inclusion and limit the group to any other categories? Inevitably, however, there will be confusion in this, because as we know to be, gay is to agree with the binary. You're just attracted to the same idea, or to the same side. To be trans is to agree with the binary. You just believe you were born on the wrong side. Non-binary, though, is seemingly against the binary or categories as a whole. So, you cannot make coherent policy to represent a nuanced community that doesn't even always represent itself. It's proving difficult to categorize the portion of our youth who resent being categorized, since their gender changes with their feelings. In a world where categories matter and order and structure gives our future a foundation, we cannot expect constructing a bathroom policy around whim or a person's ever-changing gender expression to not bring more harm than good. Especially when its primary presupposition is that it is on the side of compassion and inclusion. To feel emboldened because one feels they are on the side of compassion is a dangerous thing, because you are far less likely to truly question yourself and where your actions will ultimately take the world. We've seen this time and time again throughout history. I believe both sides today are truly trying to do the right thing. This is not about being transphobic or targeting any type of specific community. It's just that the solutions being proposed create a slippery slope with an array of other issues. The large one today is that we may be allowing whim to prevail today over the privacy and safety of our boys and girls. Lastly, I want to say that this policy appears to be implementing more than just a change in bathroom policy. It introduces a short word bank where we see terms such as sex assigned at birth. Regardless of the outcome from today, I want to implore the board to do what they can to be wary of Orwellian proclivities in reinforcing top-down changes to our view of the world through language, and to remember that although some may tragically believe their sex was wrongfully assigned to them at birth, the academic reality is our biological sex is determined well before that, and a doctor doesn't need to assign it. Thank you for your time.
So I guess we'll start with the policy update plan. Well, it's probably changing a little bit though. So. I can't open it on my desktop. So the resource materials, we've moved back to next month because we wanted to incorporate feedback from the librarians and go through some books, like have them run through the process. Thank you. Transportation is done, enrollment of students is done. Ron just announced our plans for restroom and locker room facilities. So we will not be going through that policy today, correct? Okay. So the only one left is public comment. So the public comment update came from PSBA. There's quite a few changes that we wanted to walk through all of them with the current board and just gain agreement on what do we want to change, what do we want to stay the same, and just walk through the updates that have been sent out. So you could probably skip the restroom and locker room and just open public comment.
Can I make a point of order, please? You guys decided, I guess, to change the agenda, and you did not give 24-hour notice. That is a violation of the Sunshine Act, from what I understand. I mean, you put up the policy.
Yeah, we were discussing the policy, and we decided, that's what we made an announcement.
You decided to remove it.
You decided
No,
to
we didn't
remove
remove it.
and
You
not
can go
have
through it if
comment
you
by
want.
the board
You just announced. You were gonna
at the beginning of your meeting.
I read that. Okay, we'll do the restroom and locker room.
So are we doing the policy?
Well, it,
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
More to the audience than the board. I understand Shannon's point. However, I believe everybody up here, the cabinet and the board, met in executive session. And because of everything everybody was saying tonight, like the law is very unclear, the precedents, it's a really challenging policy. But I think what we all agreed is because there's so many things that will unfold over the summer, is to go to the Supreme Court and be a non-issue by then. We don't know what happened with Title IX.
You're saying you're going to adopt it before then?
I can't hear you.
You said you're going to adopt this policy in the meantime.
No,
no,
what
we were not.
maybe, I think maybe it wasn't clear. What we're going to do, this policy will stay in place, and in August, reevaluate.
Sorry, not this
No.
policy, the current policy.
I'm sorry, the current
Yeah.
policy will
Policy will
stay in
stay.
place, and in August, reevaluate based on
Go vote.
any new law, any changes that Ron said earlier, and I think we all agree. I guess my point is, it was in an effort by everyone, honestly, to not change this policy every month based on what's going on right now.
You're not removing it.
we are removing it as of August 1st. That will go to a vote at the next board meeting.
The existing policy.
The existing policy.
With a replacement that the
We've committed, the
community-
administration is committed to, as other schools mostly do in this area, having an administrative regulation that is subject to board review and available to the public to detail what will happen in the next year. And we're not going to be involved. I don't think this is a decision that a board should be making. It should be run by the administration. They
I
have
don't
the
know, I
capability.
don't, that was not understandable.
Well, that's my understanding. I'm not speaking for anyone else. So the administration is going to put together what we think we should have. And we're going to proceed with that. This was never a policy in the history of the school until 2 years ago. It's time to retire it.
My,
My opinion, definitely my opinion. It's subject to the vote of the board.
my understanding was that over the summer, admin would work on something and come back to the board and the public. Is that what everybody else understood in that room, other than Ron, but that wasn't your understanding?
That's what I thought, but we did say we were retiring the public as of August 1st. Oh, sorry. We did say we were, no, sorry. We said we would retire as of August 1st. That, I believe, is what we're going to do.
How would retiring that?
Let's move down. Let's move on.
I'm still not sure if we're going through this policy then or not.
I don't think we are. So just to clarify that what was put forward today is the next board meeting, we're going to have a vote to retire the current policy. So not the one that's posted here, but the one that's currently in place, to retire it by August 1st. That date was picked because that is when the updates to Title IX are supposed to be enacted. To Ricky's point, we didn't want to keep iterating over it as new translations and new information around Title IX, et cetera, come out. There probably won't be much, well, I guess we can figure that out by August. But regardless, the existing policy will violate that August 1st.
You have no idea that you can violate it until it comes out, and you gotta read it or pass it.
You know, we rely on legal advice of our well-qualified counsel. So we will continue to follow that, and that's why we're doing
Well, I think to some of the questions from the public, though, just real quickly, like obviously there's all the questions of like, what about the middle schools? What about the elementary schools? And even the policy as it's written now would really only apply to the high schools. So even just from an operational perspective, to have one policy that covers the entire district and everything that can be handled in every single building isn't realistic. So the idea of pulling it from the policy, which is how it was being done before Policy 720 even existed, we're going back to the previous method to allow them to handle it on a building level based on what facilities are there, students, et cetera. Go ahead. I don't know if you want to say. We are going to put it to vote.
There's not a vote this
At the
evening.
board meeting.
We can't vote.
We can't.
August 1st is, I don't trust what you're going to be doing August 1st.
You want to
I do not trust it.
Is there gonna be a second?
What policy is going to be
Public
coming
speaking
August
second?
1st from you up there?
Yeah, I don't know if this became question and answer. But
Yeah, we're good. Did you want to say something? Sure. I'd like to have the
Sure.
administration give its perspective
My
on this.
understanding, I'm going to ask Mr. Johnson to chime in as well here. My understanding was that we were going to put this on hold, this current revision that is before you, and suspend the policy and then take a look at an administrative regulation August 1st. We started out the meeting, we were talking about the Title IX regulations, and I know some community members, board members have stressed that things could get challenged, it could be an injunction, it could go to the Supreme Court. But right now, I think we just put this on hold, this policy right here, and we take a look at the Title IX regulations that were released by the U.S. Department of Education on April 19th, all 1,500 plus pages. Take a look at it, extrapolate information from it, and see how it will impact the bathrooms here in the Penridge School District. There's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of passion surrounding this topic, and I think if we pause this right now, take a look, August 1st, I am not here hiding anything, I am transparent, and we pump the brakes right now, and we will reevaluate this whole situation.
So what is the policy until?
All right, so
You let them talk, just move.
we're going to keep going. So we've discussed this, and we're going to move on to policy 903.
All right, so as I was saying, policy 903 has had quite a few updates from PSBA. I think some of them even was the title was changed too, or I should probably have to make that update. So we wanted to go through it section by section with the board, give us all a chance to read through it, ask our questions, add in clarifying comments, and then make decisions moving forward.
Going to talk about two changes on that. One is eliminating the need to be, for first comment period, we'd like to change it to be on any topic, not just an agenda topic, because we've been talking about this for years and people have been ignoring it. So just if you come, take the time, you'll have the right to, you'll be able to speak on any topic. That was the first change. I think that's simple because we used to worry about whether it's an agenda item or not. If you come here at a meeting, I think you have the right to speak in the first period. So we'd like to change that. And oh yeah, and as far as the other thing is, we've always had a rule that's been ignored that you can only address the president of the board or leadership, and I think it's, we're all elected here, and if you want to address a comment to anyone, I think you should be able to do that. So I'd like to change that, and we'll work at it if everybody agrees to it. And there's a bunch of other changes I think we should be making on the new version, and we'll probably bring this back again for the next meeting.
Okay, well, so what we were planning to do is just go through what we were planning to do was just go through section by section. So if we start with the purpose, and does anyone on the board have comments with the updates to the purpose section?
I do think it's important to note that most of the language in here is consistent with the current policy. There's a name change from public participation to public comment. There's some subtitles and subheadings within each area that adds language and makes the policy read longer based on what PSBA has recommended.
Thank you. So with the purpose section, those 2 paragraphs that were added, well, they were kind of like rewording what was already in there.
Well, I guess in the purpose section, this policy is for, public participating in board meetings. So the 3rd paragraph where it says this policy addresses the right for the public to comment at open board meetings and responsibility of the board to conduct its business in an orderly and efficient manner. But then it goes on, is it saying like that board members shouldn't interrupt the public commentator? Or like then it just turns to board conduct. So I feel like it's not, it doesn't go with this policy. I'm not saying that shouldn't be something that should be done, but it shouldn't be in this policy.
So I read that as we should allow them to speak without interruption except when it's in violation of the law. I mean, obviously, we discourage the public from interrupting people also, and we would try and keep that in mind, but the policy, I read it as it's us giving them that platform uninterrupted.
Okay.
And let me add to that. The first part of that sentence is something that's consistent with what's already in policy. The second part is what's different. And if you look at the next page regarding this policy, it talks about 6 specific examples where a person that's providing public comment can be interrupted or terminated, and then it provides specific guidance. For example, sexual harassment, racial, ethnic, religious, or nationality, intimidation towards an individual on individuals in the school community. And again, it outlines 6 different examples, but it says that's not an entirely inclusive list, but these are some of the main objectives that they have that you could, the presiding officer could interrupt or terminate someone's ability to speak at a board meeting.
So, Jordan, are you okay with the current wording in that last paragraph? Okay. So then if we go to authority, this is a lot of the changes. So, an additional text that's been added.
You talking about authority?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what didn't we just go through?
No, we went through purpose.
But
Ernest was just talking about different reasons, but there's more in that section, the reasons. So I just wanted to open up this section to comments, and to Ernest's point, do we want to walk through the reasons where we can interrupt or terminate, make any changes for that? But I would suggest before we get to that, maybe we focus on the first few paragraphs first and then start talking about the various reasons. Did anyone have comments on the first paragraph, which talks about who is allowed to speak at public meeting?
I think that's very similar to what we have now.
Yeah, I think so
I think
too.
it's just reworded.
Okay. Next was just providing copies of agendas. subject, official action.
And I think for the board's attention, again, much of this has been in place and it's just codified through the most recent update from February 2024 in PSBA.
Right, and this is what we already practice. We provide the agendas as people walk in.
Yeah.
So this is one, the third paragraph, I think, Ron, is what you were talking about, where the beginning of each meeting is comment on agenda items. You would like to propose that we open that to any comment can be at the beginning of the meeting?
Yeah.
Would that still allow people to comment
On
at the beginning and the end though, too? Like
Yeah,
it wouldn't.
you're still in it. I'm not changing the end, I'm sorry. I'm not changing, we won't change the end one, that's still open to any. Typically, we would leave that open until the meeting's over, so someone has to then pull the second comment.
So are you saying, Ron, that where it says comment on items of concern or other matters involving you any comments go first?
Yeah, because people are always trying to find a way around it, and it's hard to hold people accountable as to whether it's the public should have a right to say what they want. Typically, we don't have that much public comment, so.
Carolyn, what was the part you were just reading? I'm sorry.
On the, where it says the board shall provide a second public comment period.
Okay, no, we're talking about the paragraph ahead of it, where it says the beginning of the meeting would just be agenda items.
Right,
That
I mean,
first-
I agree.
Okay.
So it should be. And I guess, I'm sorry, move forward, because then what happens, and if you're looking at the bottom, he's saying basically you can say anything in the beginning.
Yeah, so maybe we don't.
Yeah, I mean, I like this wording. I feel like in the beginning, you can touch upon any agenda item. It doesn't have to be just, specifically of, like, for example, we don't have to, if we're doing policy and we're doing personnel, in the beginning, you can talk about policy and personnel.
Yes.
What I'm saying, but how I'm looking at it here is that if someone wants to talk about something random, it still can be said at the beginning. And I like it how this is worded.
You don't like the random thing?
I don't, if someone wants to
It's
say
hard
random, I
to,
say
it's
just
hard
say it
to
at
police
the
that.
end.
Especially at board meetings, it's hard to police it. They find something in the minutes that says on the agenda, so it's, I feel like anybody can say whatever they want. They have 3 minutes to say it. And it's, we don't want to nitpick over whether it's on the
I
agenda.
don't know if we want to do that. I don't know
No?
I mean, think about if we could be at a finance meeting and have an hour and a half of comments
Well,
about bathrooms. I mean,
I'm more interested in the board meeting. You can keep it separate from the committee meetings, that's fine.
oh,
At
I
a
see
board
what you're
meeting,
saying. At the board
something
meeting.
has.
I still think it should be something, I don't know, I still think the agenda, I know what you're saying, but we could be, again, past bathrooms 6 months and then people can get up and just like hijack the meeting.
Right, and you can just say that at the end, I think.
I think say that at the end. I mean, everybody knows they last about 5 or 6 hours, come at 10 o'clock or 11 if they're looking.
I know, Ron,
Agenda items.
Sorry, all right.
Well, but that does bring up a good point though, because this policy is around board meetings, and I mean, I know we follow the same policy for the policy meetings too. I don't know if that necessarily means we have to update this policy, but I think as a practice moving forward, we've been doing exactly, Caroline, what you had suggested, that they can comment on any of them at the beginning. I think like tonight, it would have been nice if people could have just commented on any of the committees and not have to wait for a policy. Is that what you're talking about, Carolyn?
Yes, I mean, I thought that's what we're trying, to have people
Yeah.
come, whatever's on the agenda for that, not for the committee, like, if there's 3 committees, whatever's on those 3 committees, they can say at the beginning. However, if what they want to say has nothing to do at all with anything that's on the agenda, I think that should be waited till the end.
Okay,
And
so
I think whatever we do, I do think we should be consistent with what we do at the board meeting, what we do at committee meetings.
So are we okay with that just being like a best practice moving forward with the policy committees? Or do we want to add something in here around specific to policy committees saying that you can comment on any of them at the first public comment as long as it's an agenda item for any of the committee meetings?
Not sure that needs to be in the policy.
Okay, I'm fine with that too. I feel like it would be.
I also think agenda items is different than notes. You know how like they'll have like a summary of like notes and someone will want to comment on that even though it's not the agenda?
Oh, the minutes?
The minutes, that's it.
Yeah, I
And
think
also
that's
see-
Ron's point though, is that tends to be like
Too much.
the area where it gets confusing.
It is confusing.
I do feel, I agree with you to a point, Ron, just because I see what Ricky's saying, like, if they just don't bring up anything and try to take over the meeting. But at the same time, if there's somebody that wants to talk about something kind of benign, like on activities for something, I don't know, if they wanted to start.
We have a limit in this policy of 60 minutes. That's first.
But I guess I feel like it would be nice if they don't have to wait the entire whole meeting, if they wanted to say, hey, I really wish maybe Penridge would start blank, I don't know. And they
I
don't-
agree with that too.
Yeah, we were talking about accommodating the change to support parents with young kids that wanted to come out and make comment, but can't be here till 11 o'clock at night.
I wonder if they could send it in that, I don't know, that's
Well,
too much now.
So I mean, if we break it down to what most of the comments are about, it's either an agenda item or wanting to talk about something that was discussed at a previous meeting. So if we aren't strict about like only specific agenda items, that it can be something that's in the minutes from a committee meeting that they could come and speak about the first half. I feel like that would cover most of them, right? And then something that's just completely off the agenda, a topic that, like, so 3 meetings later, we're not still bringing it all up at the beginning because it's not in the minutes, it's not in the notes from the meeting, the committee meetings, but we give them one board meeting after the committee meeting to make comment. Does that make sense? Because it will be in the notes and the minutes at that point.
I guess.
On the agenda.
If that's easy enough to manage for whoever's gonna manage, remembering everything that's on the.
Did that make sense? Get rid of the circles a little bit. So since, like, these committee meetings, the notes will be on the agenda for the board meeting. And so if there's something that's discussed at the committee meeting that isn't anything we're discussing particularly at the board meeting, it would still allow people to make comment in the first period of the board meeting around anything that's been discussed at the committee meetings. And so then we aren't being like particular around, it's not a voting action on the board, it's not a particular agenda item on the board, it's the notes from the meeting, but it gives people who maybe weren't able to get here for committee or but still wanted to say something.
Not sure how you put that in there.
I don't think we need to put anything in there. I think we just need to agree that like the agenda item includes meeting notes, really.
Okay.
And then it'll work out that way.
Okay.
Is that?
Just out of curiosity, because I'm thinking back to a meeting that we had this time last year, Teacher Appreciation Week. We had a large group of students that showed up wanting to speak and say kind things about their teachers and express their appreciation, who weren't allowed to speak because we had this rule about agenda items only. And then those students were asked to wait till the end of a meeting that ended up being hours long and did not have the opportunity to participate in the governance of their school.
So the
I
teacher
wanna
appreciation,
see-
oh, sorry, Brian.
Yeah, sorry. I want to see if we're open to, or if there's a way to make a distinction to allow students who may choose to come to comment on the school in which they attend to be given special deference in the policy to speak in first public comment, so that they do not have to be here till the end of a meeting, which would potentially detrimentally hurt their education the next day.
Well, the easy way then is to get rid of that agenda item and then just, in the policy, it limits, if you're worried about it being hijacked, we have the right to cut it off after 60 minutes. We usually don't. But that frees it up and makes any decision by the chair or of the committee whether to allow something or not. It just makes it simple. So I still think that's good.
So Bradley, the example you gave was, it was like on the superintendent's report or something like that, that we were doing teacher appreciation. Is that what you're talking about?
So then technically it would be on the agenda.
That's true.
So it was on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like it was still covered, if we're just kind of
Yeah.
looser about what we consider an agenda item.
Why not just open it up? I mean, why force them to dig in? You just say, hey, I'm going to say something. It's 3 minutes, and it can't go on forever, right? I mean, I think that's not something that's ever going to happen. Like, we can always have the option of cutting off, it's in the policy.
Yeah, but then it depends who signs up in order.
I agree.
I think we just, I don't know, like, with some things I say we keep it the way we have it for now, and then.
Just make exceptions.
What if the first period of public comment had to be agenda items, and then based on how long that takes, you could do non-agenda items if we're at an hour and we have a lot of stuff on that. It's just so hard to get through the meetings as it is. So we could start with agenda items, and on a meeting that takes 30 minutes, let people up if they want to make their comment and leave.
Most of the in comments are not, there's not many people who sign up for them typically.
Are you and I on the same board? I
Well,
feel like
before there was, but now.
Well, that might change though too. So, all right. I'm trying to find a simple way to do this.
I think we just shouldn't be so wishy-washy. We do agendas in the beginning and then non-agendas at the end. Because if we start to say, well, 60 minutes has gone by, so now it's going to be hard. I think we just need to be firm on what we're going to decide on. Because it's just too much wishy-washy, I think.
Okay, so agenda items including superintendent's reports, meeting notes,
Yes.
everything. So it does give a little more.
Exactly, more flexibility.
And it can probably a little more temporal to like what was just discussed at committee meetings, even if it's not an agenda item at a board meeting. Yeah, it would include minutes. Right. And it's meant to allow people that if there's something discussed that isn't put up for a vote or an agenda on the board meeting, and they'd like to comment. So I don't think that changes any of the wording in here, correct? Further public comment is limited. Right.
You still.
Okay, so we did the second public comment period. We aren't changing that. And then if there's an agenda item added after public comment period is ended, the board shall offer, so I can't read, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th paragraph. When items are added to the agenda after the public comment period is ended, the board shall offer a further public comment opportunity limited to the added items. I don't know how much that really happens, or how much are we adding agenda items after public?
Very rare.
Right, I think that's probably fine. Okay, so then now we're getting into like when comment may be interrupted or terminated, and the reasons that are listed in here. So are there comments, questions, etc.? Do we just want me to read through each one and then? All right, so the first one is sexual harassment, racial, ethnic, religious, or nationality intimidation towards an individual or individuals in the school community. Oh, I thought you just said.
No, definitely. I mean, if anyone has comments, we can also come back, because we're going to probably.
So this is different though, Ernest, from what was there before, correct? Like.
Correct, this is different, and it adds specific situations where a person can, again, be interrupted or even removed.
Right.
But this is different. It was not previously written into the policy.
So I think does everyone agree on what that first one means?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I agree with that.
The second one is disclosure of confidential personal information regarding student or staff. I feel like that's kind of already a practice, right? Mm-hmm. Speech that traditionally is not protected under the First Amendment, such as obscenity, defamation, and speech integral to criminal conduct. Is that worded properly? Speech that traditionally is not protected. Is not protected?
I don't think obscenity is.
and speech integrated to criminal conduct. Yeah, I feel like there's a word, I think maybe speech that traditionally is not protected under the First Amendment, maybe it not has. Speech that is profane. I don't know how much different that is from obscenity.
It's directly towards them, it's information.
So,
One thing is directly towards
is
them.
this where we would talk about calling out community members or in the audience?
I think my recommendation to your point, Ms. Matisky, is maybe having a provision in this policy where calling out other community members who are present during our meetings. I just think that adds an element of professionalism or decorum. I think maybe we want to consider adding something that's more clearly defined, codified here, that's trying to prevent personal attacks within our community in this room.
So we'd add a seventh one that talks.
If it's the board's will, I would recommend having something. I think it was one of our last meetings, there were some things going back and forth within the audience. And I think it may be a provision that you, plural, want to consider.
So maybe we can lift something from the current 903 policy that says, comments that target specific members of the public.
Yeah, that's sick.
In particular, those who are in attendance here, because then we start getting into a back and forth, and we don't need a Jerry Springer show like school board meeting, if possible.
So how would that work? Like, would we stop a commenter if they're talking about someone in public? Okay. So we'll add a seventh that lifts some wording from, what we read at the beginning here around, comments should be directed to yada yada, but then we should be directing comments to members of the public. So maybe it's number 7 that says speech that is directed towards members of the public that are in attendance, or well, I think even just in general, public in our community isn't a good idea, even if they're not here.
That's right.
Well, to Mr. Barrios' point, there is language in the current policy. It doesn't specifically address what he's stating, but I think the beginning could reference number 6 in the active current policy. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No participant may address, and then we could continue with that line of thinking.
So so do you want to put it in a different section, or can we list it as the 7th reason why we would interrupt?
I would recommend it listed as a 7th reason why.
All right, so yeah, I think we're on the same page, that we're going to lift some of the phrases that are in current policy 903 and craft it as another reason that you can interrupt if you're addressing particular individuals in the community or not a board member. Well, yeah, we should probably wordsmith that a little bit, because if someone gets up here and they want to speak about how much they love their librarian, they'd allow that. So maybe we probably have to wordsmith that a little bit. I think Ernest, we can play around with it to just make it clear that it's not meant to be inflammatory or threatening or disparaging comments towards. Okay. All right. So we'll add a number 7. Then here we talk about what people need to write down when they sign up. Did we, in the previous version, remove groups and organizational affiliations, like it only had to be people with a tier, is
Yeah.
that still in the policy? I mean, I'd like that to be able to do that, but
I don't think we're not letting outside groups speak, so I don't think that should be on there. What we have now is the name, municipality, and topic, right?
Right.
yeah.
I don't care. I agree with that.
Taxpayers. I'm just reading it further where it says district's residents and taxpayers, including employees and students, right? So it doesn't say anywhere else up further that people who represent organizations and stuff are allowed to speak. So we've removed number 4.
I guess it's saying if they are representing an organization, they should list it.
I think it's meant to be written as assume they're in the community, but
Right.
like I'm from Sellersville, what's whatever, Holiday House Pool Association or something.
Yeah. It does say if applicable, so it's.
Okay.
Nope.
But we don't do that right now, right? Like it's just name, municipality, and topic.
Right.
The way this is worded, I think they can do it or not do it.
Right. So we add a 4th. I'm sorry?
Do we need it, or, I mean, if they want to say when they're up here, who they're with, that's fine, I don't think we need it on the sign-up sheet.
Yeah, I think I agree, it's if applicable, so they don't have to fill it out, but I feel like this is only helpful if we're allowing people who don't live in the district, but represent a group,
Which we're not.
or which we don't do, so. I would remove it just to keep it simple, but.
I agree, you should remove it down.
Okay, so we'll take out number 4. Statement of the presiding officer. Statement. All right, so we'll probably have to update this little card.
Yes.
Each statement, I'm just kind of skimming through, so if I skipped over anything you want to comment on, please interrupt me. We're still good with the 3 minutes, so this is now on the 3rd page, second line, second paragraph. And we're still good with not ceding their time to other individuals.
Right. The next one, I would like to suggest that we.
All right, so no individual may speak more than once on the same topic in either public comment session unless all others who wish to speak on a topic have been heard. As this one actually I did think was a little confusing, this paragraph. But
PBSA, and we've never done that. I think you get one chance. Because we don't set a time limit on the period, so there's no remaining time period. So I think we should just take that out. You're allowed to speak once before and once after.
But you can speak on the same topic twice, just not in the same comment section.
But the second part is.
So we don't want to allow that if it's first comment session.
Second. The first line's okay, it's after the comma. It says unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard and there's time remaining in the public comment. That says someone can speak twice during one comment period to me.
Yeah, and we don't want that.
We've never done that, I don't think.
So it's not necessarily, it's the same topic, it's just whether they can't speak more than once in each comment period.
Because it talks about time remaining in the public comment. We don't have a time set. We go through all of them typically, so there is no time period.
So Ernest, I think that paragraph we want to change to not necessarily mean the topic, but just that a person can only speak once in each comment period.
Yeah, that was the way it was before.
Correct, understood.
Thank you.
Next one,
No participant may address their. Okay, so this was the next one about statements being directed to the presiding officer. Autocorrect. No participant may address their questions school directors individually. I think this is what we wanted to talk about.
That's the one I think we should change because as long as I can remember, no one's really paid attention to it.
Yeah, we
So
don't.
you can sit there, please address, and then, you know.
All right, so do we just want to we can just remove that
I
sentence
think they should
entirely?
be directed at the board.
Right.
Anyone on the board.
Yeah,
I agree. Okay.
I'd like to, I will add that it is currently part of the policy as it's written now.
Yeah, I think it definitely is. It's even in what we
Right here.
read, but it never happens.
Right, it doesn't, so.
Okay.
And I do think it's tough. You know, like we each chair committees and things like that they might want to address us specifically. So I think
I want this to be over, so I hate to drag it on, but I have to point out that it's kind of crazy we have a rule that since nobody follows it, we'll just take it away.
Well, but,
Or
I
we
mean,
don't make anybody follow it, so we'll just be like, okay,
Well, so
it's
then
in our
the-
school.
I don't think that's the the only reason. I mean, I think we're all on the board, we're all elected. If someone wants to say something to a board member, they should be able to do it. They can't.
I agree with you, but that's not the reason we're changing it. We're changing it because we just let everybody yell us and we break the rule.
No, I think
I'm
that's-
fine with
Well,
it either way. I was
yeah,
just pointing it
well,
out.
I just
Well,
don't think
yeah,
it's
I
a
don't-
good rule.
that
I
is
don't
what we
think
were
it's real.
saying, but I don't think that's the only reason too. I think
Yeah.
we're saying it is, that's what we were just talking about, but we're also saying it is fair if they want to address me as policy chair at a board meeting and things like that. But you're right, we did say, no one's doing it anyway, was where we started.
Well, that's where, but that's not the reason to change it. I just
Okay.
don't think it's
Noted. Does-
fair to the public if they have a problem with one or want to address one. I think you should be able to do it.
Yeah. So we will just remove this sentence entirely?
I think so.
Well, I can't type, so I.
Providing officer and district solicitor have the authority to interrupt, which we do after warning, terminate. Oh, that's okay. Not sure how we would do some of this stuff, but.
Well, the first one is.
The first one we do, yeah.
Yep.
I think actually all these.
They're all, I
requests
didn't
usually
think, I didn't.
Yeah.
So you call recess and all these seem pretty common sense.
Yeah. So the last one where it's waive the rules, the board's rules regarding public comment with the approval of the majority of those present and voting. So would an example of that be that if we need to shorten it from 3 minutes or something like that, like, because there's a lot of commenters? I just wasn't sure what that would be.
There was something in the old policy like that too. But I can't find it in the crossed out section. We had the right in the old policy to change the length of it. I'd like to do
Okay.
that, but
All right, well, I mean, this is a safety net sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, in case there's something we haven't thought of. Okay, presiding officers will regarding public comments disputed. So this is when, if the rest of the board doesn't agree with the presiding officer stopping someone like that, okay. Now we're into the section response to public comment. Just give everyone a minute to read it. I'm not gonna read it out loud, but if there's things that you wanna talk through, or if you have a question on it, please jump in.
yeah, it's all very similar to what we had before.
Okay.
Just common sense.
Then recording and release of public comment.
Seems like legalese to me.
Well, so we do recordings.
Yeah, and it's,
It's not the official record, I guess.
No. I feel
that
like it
sounds
should
like
be. I feel like it's a better, I
I don't
think it's a
think
better official record than our minutes are, but,
no, but that's,
Okay.
that's a legal thing. I don't think this is.
all right.
I would check with Mike and want to change that.
So we're okay with the recording and release of public comment, which is the bottom of page 3 there, that like last full paragraph. Public comment recorded in board minutes. So that's the same. Oh wait, there was a whole section on committees, I'm sorry.
No, short.
Well, but maybe here's where we can add in the language around, we will allow people to comment on agenda items for any committee meeting at the first comment period, so that they don't have to wait, if they don't have time to wait.
Again, it's up, I mean, it's discretion. It's not something that has to be in a policy. It can be just something as a practice.
Okay.
So, I think it's good practice, but I think
So we'll keep the wording here that's the discretion of each committee. But here it says, shall not include a public comment period.
I think that should come out.
Yeah, I
That didn't, I don't even, I had to look up what committee of the whole means.
So, I mean, our committees are open.
Yeah.
So,
And, you know.
I think we should replace that with, maybe put something in that you're talking about as far as.
Right,
the
so
comment
that-
period, that since the meetings are grouped, we kind of, you can put it in if you want, or just.
So just so everyone understands, the sentence that says, in general, meetings of committees of the board shall not include a public comment period unless held as the committee of the whole. We're gonna take that out because we do have public comment at our committee meetings. I would say it'd be one of those moments where we're
Both
not
of
gonna
those.
follow the policy if we don't do that.
I think both of them should come out. With it
The
kind of
first
repetitive.
sentence too?
Public comment of committee shall be at the discretion of each committee unless, well, we assume we're going to, unless,
Well, so I thought
held
we
as a
just-
committee, that means we.
Yeah, I thought what we just talked about was that we would keep that first one in there because we didn't feel the need to go into detail about like,
Okay,
you can
that's fine.
speak to all of them, but we would just have that as our practice. We didn't want to put that in policy, is
I would-
that everyone's understanding?
I still like the committee of the whole.
That's, oh,
That's meaning the whole entire group as a whole. Doesn't mean it has to be unanimous, but it has to be. So
so maybe we just did public comment at committee meetings shall be at the discretion of each committee and just end it right there.
I don't know.
What's the differentiate, I can't speak right now, what's the differentiation of
Well,
that last part of it? Like what is that trying to call out?
But unless held as a committee of the whole?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah.
I don't. But I looked it up, I still can't say I completely understand it, but it's a group or a board is the committee of the whole is the entire board. It doesn't mean, it didn't
Okay.
explain whether it needed a majority or not, so we've never used it before. And the public comment should be at the discretion of the committee members or the majority of, we used that before, like majority of the, where was that? Waives, you can waive the board's rule approval of a majority of those resident voting. And you could put something in there. But I don't want to make that optional at all.
So we're taking out the second line that talks about we won't have public comment, okay, we're taking that out. And the first line, we're just taking out after the comma where it says unless held as a committee of the whole. So we're just gonna, under board committees, the only thing that will be under there is public comment at committee meetings shall be at the discretion of each committee. And so that will allow us to talk about, like even tonight, the three committees could have collaborated and been like, we're gonna do all comments, like, or if it's just that committee meeting, then it's kind of a moot point. Okay. So this is actually the last section, even though there's more pages, it's all crossed out. Recording devices and cameras. This is the same too, I think, like this is what we're already doing. Is there anything that was taken out that people are concerned about or would like to be specifically pulled back in? So again, like Ernest explained, this is all from PSBA based on what most schools have switched their policy to in light of things that have happened over the past few years in public comment periods.
If this came from PBSA, they didn't do a very good job on it, I would say. Based on some of the typos, and I don't know where it came from, but I think it needs to be handled better.
So we do have language that commenters must be residents, right?
Yes, that's, I think it's, hold on, let me scroll to the top. It's page 2, first paragraph. District residents and tax payers include, and we also allow employees and students, so, and we've done this in the past too, if there's a teacher, if they don't live here, they're allowed to comment, or an employee.
Right, okay.
Okay. All right, so we'll add the changes we talked about and bring it back again, because it would be first read again. I'm never quite sure like how much of what is a substantial amount of changes to consider to make it first read again. So we have a few things that we're adding, some things we're taking out.
I don't think it's substantially changed.
Okay, so we can bring it, we'll add it in,
Kind
do
of
it
a
second
rewrite.
read. And if we
Well,
still
that-
miss something, then we'll just do second read again or something, like we can figure it out. Okay, all right, so we'll bring it back.
Just rewording mostly, but
All right.
if there's anything controversial, somebody can bring it up.
So we will bring this back
But I
for
think it's more of a-
second read at the next meeting with the comments.
Well, we have to
that,
vote
yeah.
on it. First reading.
Sorry.
First,
Yeah.
and then it comes back.
Sorry, I knew that. All right, so we'll put this up for first read at the board meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on 903? Okay, so we're back to public comment. I think there's one person, Janelle Montigny, is signed up for public comment.
That you changed the agenda tonight. Can I just ask a question to clarify as I make the current comment? You said that you're going to be voting to get rid of the current policy at the next meeting.
Mhm.
Is it going to be effective then or effective in August?
August,
So the termination of the policy will be effective in August?
yeah. We don't want to change
Just
anything in
wanted
the
to
building.
clarify what I was talking about.
We don't want to change anything.
Miss-
We want to give them time to come up with the proper handling on starting August
But it'll be
1st.
handled the same way now till August.
Until the end of school.
Just want to make sure.
Both in the Democrat majority's Janelle Montigny, Hilltown. Both in the Democrat majority's campaign page and Leah's Sisters Ridge Network page made posts accusing parents of fear-mongering when they have expressed valid factual concerns regarding having students of both biological sexes share bathrooms and locker rooms. Sharing inconvenient truths isn't fear-mongering. You're the ones who want to scare parents from standing up for fear of being called transphobic. You want to guilt parents who know in their heart that this policy is wrong for their children to just keep their mouths shut. The fact that board members are still posting divisive stuff against many parents in the community on a campaign page is wrong. Also, in the past, Democrats have complained about having their emails ignored by a Republican board president. I emailed some questions that have yet to be addressed. At the last meeting, Ron stated that there was a lot of chatter on social media that was incorrect. I asked him what specifically. If he's going to make broad accusations like that, he should back it up with facts. He also stated that this chatter causes divisiveness and anger in the community, implying there's a problem with community members sharing what took place at the last policy meeting with fellow parents. Finally, I asked Ron about doing a survey of parents, like the administration did during COVID. The bathroom and locker room policy will affect every student every day. Why won't the board do a survey? I reached out to Carolyn and Bradley regarding their stance on Leah's many conflicts of interest. I've not heard back from Bradley, but Carolyn was clear that she supports Leah as policy chair and that she thinks she's doing a fine job, even with the board blindside of the last policy meeting and her confusing policy proposals. She believes it is enough that Leah just recused herself from the civil rights complaint and doesn't have an issue with her discussing or voting on policies in the complaint, as well as replacing our legal counsel that advises on those policies. Since this is also the rest of the majority's opinion, it's safe to say that Bradley also feels this way as well. That said, at this point, I believe the 5 Democrats on the board are complicit in the scheme to use the discrimination complaint hidden until after the election to get the far left agenda through. If that weren't the case, they would be vocally denounce it, and they haven't. Finally, I asked Leah why she only acknowledges the feelings of transgender students and dismisses those of everyone else who has children very uncomfortable with the policy that she is proposing. Thanks.
Thank you. That's the end of public comment at the end of the meeting and the end of policy committee.
Can I say one more comment just to all of us? I think before the next school board meeting, we should probably have another executive session. I was trying to say earlier, but I don't know if it was my head or just not being able to talk. I think that we thought we had a good plan and definitely had good intentions, but I don't feel like, I'm not even sure we were on the same page, and I don't think we brought any clarity to the community, so.
So
I'd be up for
to
one more
discuss,
go.
like, talking about the next steps for 720 for that one.
Yeah, something so that at the May board meeting, we can, I think everybody will have more confusion than they can.
If you guys are up for it. Is everyone okay with that? Thank you. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.